Welcome in to Check the Mic. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We're live on YouTube. And it's time, Sam, to review Wild Card Weekend. You told me they dropped the Super from Wild Card this week.
So I've been told. I saw Pat McAfee railing against the decision to make it not Super when it was Super previously. Like, why would you do that? Why would you unsuper something?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first few games weren't Super, but we got a great one last night.
Maybe they saw it coming.
Maybe they were like, hey, the matchups are terrible here.
Look, I've looked at these matchups, and we've determined that it's no longer Super this week.
It's just a traditional Wild Card weekend.
It's just a regular old Wild Card weekend this week.
Well, we have 5 games to discuss, and the Wild Card weekend's not over yet. The whole weekend of football starting Thursday night with college football playoff games and NFL games. We're only talking NFL here today, though, so we'll review all 5 and get us all ready for Vikings-Rams tonight. It's all brought to you by PrizePicks. Shout out to our friends over at PrizePicks. You guys can join with us. Download the PrizePicks app today. Use code CheckTheMic. You get $50 instantly when you play $5. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. Big week, big show. We're going to go reverse order. We're mixing it up. We're starting with last night because we did have a couple instant reactions on all of the other games. But the last thing we saw, the Washington Commanders with the win, 23-20. Yesterday was a big day for first time since Mark Brunell stats.
Oh, God.
It was a huge day. Huge day. A little extra pep in my step here today.
Yeah.
Because we get to reference Mark Brunell multiple times on the show here today. First Washington playoff win since Mark Brunell, 2005.
Mark Brunell had the last
right.
Washington playoff
That's correct.
win.
I thought it was the first road win, but it was their first playoff win since 05.
Wow.
Is that right?
That's a long time.
Right? It is. 23-20, walk-off doink field goal for the Washington Commanders. We'll go blow by blow on some of the key plays in this one, but your overarching thoughts here. Commanders get the win, and they move on to play Detroit.
Walk-off doink. That's way better than whatever Chris said in the broadcast.
Walk-off doink?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just flowing here. You see a little Brunell stats get me going here at 7 in the morning.
Yeah.
It's great.
Well, this was the only good game of Wild Card Weekend.
It was great. This was a fun back and forth game.
I felt sad that one of these teams had to lose. You know, like a lot of the matchups earlier, like, okay, one team's better than the other. They're going to win. I don't have a particular rooting interest in this game other than let's have the best team advance and have a better matchup in the next round. This one, though, is like, I quite like both these teams. I mean, you've got Baker and the Moxie, you know, and the Bucks, and then you've got Washington with this amazing story of Jaden Daniels and everything he's doing at quarterback as a rookie. Young Dan Quinn over there looking like Kevin James. It's like there's rooting interest in both sides. I just sort of felt sad that one of these teams had to go home.
I saw you tweet that out. Did that take off, Dan Quinn?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, okay. It should have.
It was.
They showed a throwback picture of Dan Quinn. That did
Not only does he have hair, I mean, that's, you know, it's always jarring when you see old photographs of people that you know to be bald, and obviously the old photographs, they have hair. But young Dan Quinn looks very much like Kevin James.
Maybe we'll pull that up
maybe
at some point here
tell.
on Sam's Twitter account. So yeah, the Commanders get the game-winning field goal. It was really a back and forth type of game. Overarching theme of this game for me was the fourth down decisions by Dan Quinn. He goes for it four times on fourth down. Coming into the game, they had been 20 for 23 on fourth down, which, by the way, immediately scares me because of variance. Right, I cannot help but remember the 2019 Ravens, who were not only at the forefront of going for it, but also ridiculously successful and failed in the playoffs, which is, you know, tough. Sometimes it's just tough to keep up. 20 for 23.
Though you do have the common sort of theme there is when you have cheat code quarterbacks, it helps you fix a lot of those. I mean, Baltimore is always going to be very good at fourth downs. Buffalo is always going to be very good at them with Josh Allen. Philadelphia is always going to be very good at them with Jalen Hurts. And now Washington looks like they may be very good at them with Jaden Daniels. We'll get to it whenever we get to it. But that very last play where Kalijah Kancey had that thing dead in the backfield and Jaden Daniels just went, nope, stiff arm, first down. I'm going to, like, that quarterback, that specific skill set, athleticism, you know, stiff arm skills, like that's the difference between converting that play or not.
Absolute cheat code, Jaden Daniels. And I thought he played great. Ultimately, the Commanders were 3 for 5 on fourth downs, but 4 of those were in field goal range.
Right.
Where, again, the hashtag Take the Points crowd was very adamant that the points should have been taken.
Take your points.
And especially after Dan Quinn missed on the first one. And so they the very first fourth down, they
then it became, told you, take your points.
Yeah. And it was fascinating the way it worked out, right? They get stopped on fourth, and then they go for it on fourth and get a touchdown. So it was like a net 7 instead of a potential 6, right? In the end of the day, 4 fourth down decisions led to 14 points. They got 2 of them. Then 2 of them led to 2 touchdowns at 14 points. They failed on 2 of them and essentially gave up those field goal opportunities. So we are talking, if you want to just keep it in simple terms, the Commanders come away with 14 points based off those 4 fourth down decisions versus only 12 potential points. And then you see how the game-winning field goal of only 37 yards by Zane Gonzalez doinks in, right? It goes in off the upright. And then you say, okay, those field goals that could have been attempted, and I don't remember the exact yardages, but like, remember, they're not gimmies. They're not 100%. So right. At the end of the day, Dan Quinn in those fourth down decisions end up being huge. And then I just urge my friends, some of the friends in media, people that, follow me and that I follow and everything, who are not listening to the show, I'm sure. But I urge you to just, can you remember just 2 weeks ago, at the very exact same time slot with the playoffs on the line, Dan Quinn made very similar decisions where he gave up field goal attempts and they picked up 14 points instead of 6. It worked 2 weeks ago against the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday Night Football. This is the way Washington has been playing. They're leaning into what you mentioned, Jaden Daniels' special running ability and the ability to keep the defense in a bind on fourth down. And that is a big reason why the Commanders have overachieved this year.
Yeah. I think you're seeing a lot of these coaches now, like this aggression, this commitment to going for it in these situations is a big part of how they're winning these games. And if in particular, when you have a quarterback that can make those decisions right from an execution standpoint. Because, think of how many plays where it's like, I like this decision to go for it in generic 4th and 2. I hate the play call, right? The Chargers with Quentin Johnston, we're going to run a 2-yard whip on 4th and 2 against Derek Stingley. I like the decision to go for it. What the hell is that play call? So Jaden Daniels is the type of quarterback that can make a bad play call correct by executing better than the guy trying to stop him. And again, that's true for Josh Allen, for Lamar Jackson, for a lot of these other quarterbacks as well. So when you have a guy like that, your numbers are better. You're even better than the data says you are in those situations because your quarterback can take a busted play and fix it.
And then, yeah, absolutely. And look, Washington couldn't. We'll talk about that last play for a second here. Washington could not run the ball effectively last night. They were trying. They were early down running like crazy. Brian Robinson had 10 carries for 16 yards. Austin Eckler, he did sneak a couple good runs in there, particularly on the final drive, ends up with about 3.4 per carry. Even Jaden Daniels' actual running stats, nothing longer than 8 yards, nothing spectacular, but he did one of those, hey, I'm going to scramble, pick up a few yards rather than throwing it away. And some of the design runs early didn't go anywhere. But with the game on the line, 3rd and 2, I suggested, hey, are they going to run their best Jaden Daniels keeper? And they did. They got him out on the edge. Kalijah Cansey gets into the backfield, and then grabs Jaden Daniels' towel, unable to pick him up or to stop him. And I'm like, first off, incredible play by Cansey. He shouldn't even have been a part of that play. They're running a sweep. He almost away from him.
He almost killed that thing 5 yards deep into the backfield. That was one of those. Remember, Kalijah Cansey got a lot of Aaron Donald comps at draft time because he's basically the same dimensions and ran a really fast 40 times.
He was getting him last night too.
Right. And the reason he got those comps is because he has that quickness to be able to get not just into the backfield, but all the way in. Those plays where Aaron Donald just absolutely annihilates a guy at the line and destroys a play. And it's okay, that's a different way of playing the run, right? We're going to play the run the same way we play the pass, which is I'm going to beat the offensive lineman immediately and be 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage making the play. Cansey made that play on that play, except he couldn't finish it and tackle Jaden Daniels. Now, some might suggest that's because his arm length is a lot shorter than Aaron Donald's, and that was a difference between the two. 4th percentile arm shows up right there, getting stiff-armed.
Yeah, well, I view it more as that's not even a bad play by Cansey. He shouldn't even have been there. Should not have even been in the backfield.
I mean, the net of that play isn't good, though.
I mean, the end of the play is good, but you know who screwed up?
You
Everyone
get
else.
stiff-armed and end up grasping a towel and chasing them all the way to the
people
first
that they
down.
were running at,
it's not great.
At the point of attack, they all got blocked. Washington finally blocked one up front, and it was huge. That converted a third down, set up the game-winning field goal. So let's reverse a little bit because we're talking about Dan Quinn and his aggressiveness. And look, there were other factors. The biggest play of the game was Baker Mayfield. There it is. The Kevin James comp.
Yeah.
To Dan, right, that is. Oh, he's the king of Queens. That's good for Dan Quinn.
Now, Kevin James, he was playing Sean Payton in the movie. It should have been Dan Quinn.
Should have been Dan Quinn. People completely, or maybe Dan Quinn could have played Sean Payton. Never know.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway, the biggest play of the game was Bucs had the lead, and they made one of those fourth down stops.
In the red zone.
In the red zone against Washington. May have been a pass interference on that. Levante David kind of hugging a receiver at about 6 yards down the field, if you want to call illegal contact or defensive pass interference. I think it was in play. So Washington gets stopped, and Baker Mayfield essentially fumbles a jet sweep. Washington recovers, and that led to the go-ahead touchdown. The Bucs ended up tying it later, but obviously a huge play. Momentum swing even.
Momentum.
More important than the momentum, the actual possession changed, which was huge.
Yes.
And that's why Washington took the lead and really took control of the game after that.
Yeah, that whole sequence was the difference in the game. I mean, Washington, remember that they got set up in goal-to-go situation with a defensive pass interference in the end zone.
First and goal from the 1.
Yeah. Then the Bucs defense actually stands, and Washington had chances. I mean, they had a play that they missed before. Was that the sequence where Deion Jones got a pass breakup as well? Like,
yes.
Dude hasn't played at all in the regular season. They're like, go out there and, defend the end zone in this key situation, Deion. Thanks. And then you have, obviously, Levante David with the, coverage / getting away with illegal contact in the end zone. Either way, they get out of that 4 plays having held, get the ball back. They're like, that's a phenomenal break from the Buccaneers' defensive point of view. They survived this goal-to-go situation against Washington. That
was the game. To me, like the Bucs were up 3 at that point, and that was the game to that point.
Massive, massive swing in their favor. They hold instead of giving up at least 3 points, maybe a touchdown, probably a touchdown.
They're up 4, sorry.
And they're up 4. They have the ball. They can try and put a score on the board and try and take control of this game. And then just the timing's off. Something is wrong with the timing, whether it's the center, whether it's Baker, whether it's the motion. Was it Jalen McMillan? Either way, one of those 3 guys was just off by a hair, and that's the difference between just a routine jet sweep handoff and suddenly the ball's on the ground. Bobby Wagner pounces on it, turnover, and now you got to do it all over again. And this time they can't stand at the goal line. Washington gets their score, and now they have control of the game. This is why, predicting these games is always so maddening and frustrating. It's like that one play where they've practiced that however many times, just a routine, basic execution handoff is a split second off in some dimension, and suddenly the difference between, like, maybe that's a positive 5-yard gain, and it's the difference between that and the ball is on the ground, you lose it, and they have the control, and suddenly you're now behind the 8 ball for the rest of this game.
I mean, we mentioned Baker Mayfield's turnover-worthy plays as, hey, you got to keep those in check in a playoff game here. Wasn't expecting it to be a failed jet sweep, though. Thought it might be a misread of coverage, a force, right? Some of the things that he had done earlier this year. Because Baker Mayfield played great. I mean, they were the Bucs started slow, and then Baker Mayfield turns into Mike Allstott on one run, trucks Bobby Wagner, and then before you know it, it's like boom, boom, boom. They go down, score their first touchdown. Mike Evans was dominating the Marshawn Lattimore matchup in this one. Lattimore was coming off the hamstring injury. It kind of looked like it. Evans was getting the better of him every single time. Right. I mean, this game was the Bucs for a while, and then again into the fourth quarter until the jet sweep fumble.
Baker Mayfield trucking Bobby Wagner was not something I expected to see. It's also not how I expected that play to end once he took off and once Bobby Wagner had him lined up about 2 yards short of the first down marker. Because that was another one. Remember the game a week ago where it's like they're in trouble, and then Baker kind of takes over. It might have been, was it also a 3rd and 9 from his own end zone where he decides to pick up the first down and keep that drive alive, and then does it again on 3rd and 14 a couple plays later? Yeah. Similar thing. It's like Baker just decides, all right, I got this one, takes off, only he's going to be short. Like he takes off on 3rd and 9, and Bobby Wagner has him lined up at about 7 yards. You're like, oh, that's that dead. And he just ends up lowering the shoulder, pinballing off a couple of guys, picking up like 3 more yards and the first down. You're like, okay, maybe Baker's doing it again. So it threatened to be, Baker takes over again and makes those plays. The other thing I found just kind of funny or compelling in this game is you had Bobby Wagner and Levante David both balling out, making plays.
Class of 2012 for both of them,
right.
I believe.
Yeah. Both guys who are like Hall of Fame caliber linebackers, right up there with the best of their generation and of the best of all time. Those guys and Luke Kuechly, who's been retired for a couple of years now. But like both these guys deep into their 30s now are still making plays on playoff caliber teams. Levante David, Chris showed on the broadcast a couple of times, like hawked down Jaden Daniels in the open field despite being whatever he is, 34, 35 years old now. Bobby Wagner has adapted his game. Like he's lost a step. I think that's fair enough to say, but he's still playing at a really high level. And outside of randomly getting trucked by Baker Mayfield, had a really good game.
Yeah, it was impressive for both of those guys. I got to respond to something in the chat. I didn't hear the halftime interview with Todd Bowles, but I saw the quotes coming out of it where he's basically saying from our friend Drake Holiday, halftime interview, Bowles was just like, hey, got to stop Jaden rolling to the left, right, our right, left, our left, his right.
That's because that idiot Dove Kleiman tweeted about that and was like, how is this guy still a head coach?
Because Todd Bowles, just so you understand, he's a defensive coach. Defensive coaches view the game backwards. Yeah. It's just what it is, right? So when Todd Bowles says left, it's because he's defense. Like, the Madden view where you're a quarterback and, defense thinks everything backwards, right? Because that's what you see.
And also, like
their X's, like when you draw plays, you draw it from the defensive point of view. So when Jaden Daniels rolls right, it's your left. That's why Todd Bowles said those things. It's not because he doesn't know left and right. So please,
also,
don't get suckered into that. He's a defensive coach. It's their left. That's how he thinks. That's how they're wired.
He could flub it 15 times as long as it's correct by the time it gets conveyed to the players. It doesn't matter. Like, if he could legitimately not really know the difference between left and right, as long as somebody makes sure that the players are aware of which side we're talking about when he's making that communication, we're fine.
When he's talking to them and he's like, hey, make sure we keep contained, don't let him roll left.
Right.
He's talking about defensive left, right? That's how they're going to communicate. Yes. So please do not – look, I'm going to criticize maybe the field goal decision by Todd Bowles, but we don't need to criticize the left and right thing, okay? So don't get suckered in to that.
If you're following that guy, Dove Kleiman, just block him. Get rid of him.
Oh, yeah. I mean, listen. the other guys, Warren
There's
Sharp's
a lot of them that are bad, but
Warren Sharp's tweet the other day
terrible.
blaming 71 in the blocking scheme with Penn State's interception driving me nuts too.
Yeah.
Like, just learn ball, man. Learn ball. Anyway, so the other interesting thing about this game, and I think we mentioned it in the preview, the way Washington has been playing football. In the Atlanta game in particular a couple weeks ago where they leaned on Atlanta and just controlled possessions, the Bucs only had 7 possessions in this game because, again, Washington had, in the first half, a 17-play, 92-yard drive. They had 5 different drives with at least 10 plays, right? This is how they're playing football. And even in a game where they couldn't run the ball effectively, right? They were just banging their head against the wall, but they still ended up with about 30 carries, banging their head against the wall, but it's slowing the game down. And Baker Mayfield only went 15 of 18 passing, right? They didn't have many opportunities offensively, and this is just an underrated part of the game. So every possession was crucial. And at the very end, after Dan Quinn is going for all these fourth downs, and it becomes this net positive, you've got, first off, the Bucs execution failures in the fourth quarter. You have the dropped jet sweep fumble, and then it's 3rd and inches, and they line up to convert this thing, and the snap count's off, right? Snapped early, everything's off, and they lose yardage, and that sets up 4th and 3 instead of 3rd and inches, 3rd and 1 to 4th and 3. So they kick the field goal down 3 to tie it to 2020, right? Pretty conventional move, but that was the one with 4:45 left. You could kind of envision the way Washington plays their ball control. I mean, you got to trust your defense to stop them, but Washington ended up running out the entire clock, the rest of the game. So Tampa Bay never got the ball again. So kicking that field goal to tie it, you got to go for the tie, ends up becoming a critical move that, again, the data might say you want to go for that and not kick the field goal to tie it.
Yeah, this was a wild game in terms of it was the classic shortened game with very few possessions. I mean, Washington, Tampa Bay, you look at the numbers, they were significantly more efficient and more productive on the offensive side than Washington, but Washington refused to leave the field and kept going for all these fourth downs and keeping these drives alive, even when in a normal game, or if they hadn't done that, they would have been forced to settle for field goals or simply, lost possession. They kept possession of the football, so kept the more efficient offensive team off the field. And then ultimately, the big difference between the two ends up being the turnover, right? That fumble gives them an extra possession, and the game is so tight at that point, the extra possession is everything. So that ends up being everything. It's such an annoying, reductive way of analyzing the game, but one slight error in execution is the difference here. Tampa Bay had an opportunity to take control and win this game, and lost it because they fumbled the ball in a jet sweep.
We apologize to anyone experiencing any of the buzzing. We're working on it. We are checking the mics at the moment here. Hashtag check the mic. That ended up being, look, I wonder if the shouty shows are going to talk about Todd Bowles being too conservative, going for the field goal. No shouty shows, unless maybe you listen in. Will the shouty shows compliment Dan Quinn for never taking the points and always going for it?
No.
And then criticizing Todd Bowles for hashtag take the points.
No.
And being a big part of the loss here. So at the end of the day, Washington ends up, they did run the ball a little bit more effectively. I mean, the other play of the game on that final drive, Jaden Daniels to Austin Eckler, kind of a weird throw. And look, with the way Todd Bowles plays defense, I'm not saying this is right or wrong, kind of an old school 3-4 blitz heavy look, right? It's not really 3-4, but it has those elements where you're going to have defensive ends dropping into coverage all the time. Earlier in the game, I thought Jaden Daniels missed some opportunities. He had Zach Ertz one-on-one with Anthony Nelson, who's like a 280-pound defensive end. Well, one of the plays of the game ends up being Yaya Diaby in coverage, defensive end, in coverage against Austin Eckler, and the ball just kind of zips right past Diaby, who maybe had a chance to break it up, but zips right past him. Weird throw, but it gets to Eckler, 18 yards. That was what kind of spurred the Commanders to get pretty much into field goal range. That got them into game-winning field goal range. Then they just needed one first down after that, and that was the 3rd and 2 QB sweep by Jaden Daniels, and the rest was history. So just a lot of those key high-leverage plays down the stretch there, and Washington just made a few more, while the Bucs made some really bad mistakes in the fourth quarter. The execution errors on the jet sweep and on the 3rd and inches ended up becoming just massive plays that you can't have at that time of the game.
The other fun thing that Washington is doing on those short yardage things is they're playing around with this, put Marcus Mariota out there under center, have Jaden Daniels in motion or moving around the place. Obviously, I mean, the second time they just they were trying to draw them off and then ended up running that sweep play. But they are a lot of these first playoff games is maybe do you keep your powder dry? Did Buffalo do that? Was that why the game plan was relatively simplistic from their point of view, certainly late on? They're putting things on tape. Now, the next team that has to play Washington is looking at this and going, what are they setting up with this Marcus Mariota coming on, Jaden Daniels in motion thing? What do we have to worry about on this play other than simply Jaden Daniels taking the ball in a sweep or all the usual things we have to worry about? Now we have to plot out what this stupid trick play could be and spend time actually, planning for that in the future.
I like that. It also, because I don't know if Jaden Daniels is the best QB sneaker. It gives Marcus Mariota the ability to run the sneak, and you kind of save. I mean, look, Daniels took some big hits again, much like he used to do at LSU.
He went full cartoon again early in that game.
He did. He got popped. Zion McCollum hit him pretty hard.
He actually launched him into the air.
Yes.
Put him airborne.
And usually I'm all for the defender there. I think on the replay it did show that was slightly late. Jaden had just stepped out of bounds. It was kind of bang-bang, but could have been called as a late hit. But Zion McCollum hit him hard. But it might save a little wear and tear on on Jaden
The sneak
Daniels.
thing is a solid point. I mean, Mariota has like a solid 15 pounds on Jaden Daniels, just sheer physics-wise. Like, he's a heavier guy, and if you think that that's a big part of the sneaks, it could be a difference.
The one other thing I mentioned earlier, Mike Evans kind of dominating Marshawn Lattimore. We didn't get the back and forth that we were hoping for.
Or the fight.
No
I
fight,
was waiting
nothing.
for Lattimore to just snap and tee off and we get, Andre Johnson versus Cortland Finnegan, part 2 in the playoffs. Like, I was thinking, look, at the very minimum, that Lattimore is not going to just go down without a fight. But he did. He just lost. He just got his ass kicked by Mike Evans because he probably wasn't 100% healthy, got wrecked, and then just let it happen. What the hell is that?
Got to start swinging. Do something. You got to get into Mike Evans' head.
Got to go down swinging. Look,
I don't know how much the injury affected Lattimore, but clearly he was a step slow on a bunch of those.
As a former amateur athlete, the one thing you'll know when you come up against your level, right, and you're suddenly completely in over your head and overmatched, what does everybody do? You turn to violence. This guy is significantly more talented, skillful, and better than me. The only way of offsetting that is by turning to violence. And he didn't. He just let it happen. He just got beat. What the hell is that?
Lattimore kept his cool.
No, can't have that.
I mean, I even saw when Jaden Daniels, when Jaden Daniels got popped, I think I saw some Washington people being like, hey, nobody went up and defended him. And like the logical person.
Too busy waiting for him to come down from orbit.
It's true, he got tossed. The logical person in me is like, I think it's better not getting a 15-yard penalty on the, when you're heading into the red zone. So I don't know. I'm back and forth on that. Obviously, you got to protect your players and all that stuff, but like a 15-yard penalty just to, after your quarterback gets hit, isn't worth it. So Washington. Anything else on the game flow here? I really think the shortened game is a huge factor. And I'll say this: I think Detroit's going to beat Washington next week, but that ability to shorten the game, and we'll talk about it with the Buffalo game. Like, Buffalo played this style yesterday, and for a while, because they couldn't convert in the red zone, it's like, wow, Denver's hanging in there. One fluke play or one deep ball or whatever, and Denver's in the lead. Washington can play this style where if they can limit Detroit to 8 possessions, right, instead of 12, instead of 11, can they keep it close enough? They do have this annoying style that increases variance, annoying for the opponent. Right, of ball control.
I mean, we'll see what happens tonight in the last game to go. But like the two class teams in the AFC progressed without much of a contest. Philadelphia in the NFC did the same thing. This is one of those games where it's like either one of these teams could go through, and I think either one of them would have remained a live threat to Detroit. Like, I think either Tampa Bay or Washington has shown that they can cook in a given game differently. But I think they're both dangerous. Tonight, Minnesota has obviously shown that they can be a class team as well, and the Rams have beaten Minnesota already. So I guess either one of those teams is dangerous as well. But like Washington, a few weeks ago beat Philadelphia. Like, they showed that Philadelphia absent Jalen Hurts, but still, like, they showed that they can cause problems for teams that are quote unquote better than them. Philadelphia, Detroit, maybe. That game plan is problematic. Like, they are going to shorten the game. They are going to keep themselves on the field with Jaden Daniels picking up those key 4th downs. And if those things break their way, you can limit this incredibly potent, explosive Detroit offense to a half dozen drives, and suddenly they can't put up, 45 points against you. And there's definitely a pathway to Washington winning that game. I agree with you. I think Detroit does win, but it's not like a guaranteed walkover, I don't think.
And then I just want to give Jaden Daniels a final shout-out. I mean, first rookie to win on the road since 2012 in a game which was 2 rookies against each other. Russell Wilson against RG3,
so
right?
One of them had to win.
So someone.
Yeah.
But Russell Wilson was the road quarterback. So we saw Bo Nix not do it earlier in the day. Jaden Daniels is just cool and calm under pressure, man. And again, the final stat line wasn't special as far as the run game goes, but they have that to tap into when they need to. By the way, De'Ami Brown made a ton of huge plays for Washington in this game. Terry McLaurin had a good game, but it was De'Ami Brown with some huge plays. And then they also took advantage of some Bucs injuries in the secondary on that final drive.
Jamel Dean going down was a big factor in this game.
It was. Yeah. Dynamite drop in. That was good.
Dynamite drop in?
Yeah. It's from Major League 2.
Oh, got it.
Dynamite drop in, Monty. The broadcasting school's really starting to pay off. I use that on you about once a year.
Cool.
Anyway, Jaden Daniels, good job.
Yeah. Very
Redraft,
much so.
Is he going number 1 overall? Let's do this for social media. Do a clip for social.
I mean, he would now, right? Like even the most ardent Caleb Williams believer would, I think, struggle based off the evidence of their rookie years to still stick with Williams and be like, I'm definitely confident that he will be better than Jaden Daniels in the future. He might be, but I don't know that you could be that confident now.
I feel very confident in Jaden Daniels. My only pause is we're sitting. We literally just saw how impressive C.J. Stroud was last year.
Right.
How he's regressed a little bit this year, and how Bryce Young has completely turned it around, and over the last 8 to 10 weeks has looked better than C.J. Stroud. So certainly that's in the range of outcomes that a year from now, Caleb Williams looks better than Jaden Daniels. But it's very difficult to discount not only how well Jaden Daniels has played in the clutch, in fourth quarter situations, but how you can build this offense around his skill set. And they did this without a great number 2 option, despite what De'Ami Brown did last year, this entire season, right? So I think there's even more growth available here for Jaden Daniels.
Yeah, and critically, Caleb Williams, I think, was a significantly better prospect than Bryce Young. So even, look at the turnaround that Bryce Young has had from a much worse starting point. Like, he was atrocious year one, even worse in the first couple of games of the season before they had to bench him. Caleb Williams hasn't played as badly as that and is a more talented prospect. So, if you want to project the optimistic outlook for Caleb Williams, in several different ways, it's better than Bryce Young was at that point. So the ceiling is still really high. It's just there's no way you could be confident that he will be better than Jaden Daniels based off the fact that Daniels has been amazing, maybe the best rookie performance ever. I mean, Stroud was maybe the best rookie performance ever, and Daniels has probably been slightly better than Stroud. So we're having this endless sequence of best rookie ever, best rookie ever. Baker Mayfield broke the rookie touchdown record. Justin Herbert then broke the rookie touchdown record. C.J. Stroud came along and was arguably better than both those guys. And now Jaden Daniels has come along and has been better than any of them. We're on this never-ending run of generally rookies struggle, but there's been quite a lot of instant successes, in a pretty short period of time.
And not all of them have just, as I always say, it's not Madden growth.
Right.
They don't automatically get better, and by year 4 they're elite. It's not always that clean.
Sure.
So we won't overreact to anything. Anything else on this game?
No.
So again, Washington, Detroit. When's that? Next week? That's the Saturday night game. Commanders, Lions, 8 p.m. We should go. Do you want to go to that game? How do we pull that off? Get to Detroit, and then getting back for Sunday.
Yeah, that's our problem.
Yeah, that's potentially the problem. All right, so going reverse order through the games. Philadelphia Eagles get the win over the Green Bay Packers. It was 22-10. The Eagles move on to host the winner of tomorrow's game.
Yeah.
Tonight's game, sorry. Vikings, Rams. So Eagles as the 2 seed. Weird start, man. A fumble on the opening kickoff by Keyshawn Nixon.
Debatable. Not debatable. Fumble. Debatable recovery.
It was a real fumble.
Yeah.
But a debatable
debatable fumble, but a debatable recovery.
I'm sorry, yeah, not debatable fumble. Yeah, just go ahead.
Yeah.
Explain what happened.
Well, he fumbled the ball, and then there was a debatable recovery.
There it is. That's exactly what happened. What did you think there? I thought they were going to overturn it, give it back to Green Bay.
I did think, that Green Bay probably should have had that ball back. I think it was a bad call. There was some weird officiating. I mean, it's shocking. The NFL had some weird officiating, but that didn't seem like a correct decision to me. And that was a huge, right off the gate. The entire first half couldn't have gone much worse for Green Bay, but immediately you give Green Bay likes to do this, right? In a world where the general established pattern of behavior is you take the ball in the second half if you can, you defer. Green Bay likes having the ball for the first drive all the time. This is one of the things they do. And generally it's they take the ball, you march down the field, you score, and now you've put them under pressure, right? What's the worst thing that can happen is immediately you cough it up in your own red zone, essentially. Instead of, I'm taking the ball, I'm going to establish the pattern of this game, we're going to, make a statement. It's actually, instead of that, the very first play, you just gave them possession, and you did it in the red zone, so that they're probably going to score very quickly.
We'll talk about Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh did it too, right? They took the ball and then got wrecked in the first half, and it's like Baltimore's getting the ball in the second half.
It's terrible when that happens.
Pittsburgh did it for a reason. We'll talk about it when we get there. But like how badly they had started all their playoff games, so they probably wanted this psychological.
And
aspect.
I do get it. Like this, if it is a statement, if you're able to take the ball, march down the field, put up a touchdown, and suddenly you're like, wow, that's a real statement of intent. But like if it doesn't go the way you want it to go, it's really bad because they're getting the ball in the second half as well, and you didn't make your statement.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always team defer. I think there might be, and look, you know how poorly the Eagles have started games this year? Sometimes there could be something to, hey, this team's bad in the first quarter. Let's take advantage of that. And if we want to have extra possessions, let's do it in the first half instead of the second half. However, it works the other way too, where the Eagles have been a great second half team. And so you do want to give them the extra possession in the second half. Ultimately, you're probably going to get the same number of possessions. But if it's uneven, I would rather it be uneven in the second half, not the first half, right? I'd rather have the extra possession when I understand the game flow and I know what's going on. That's why teams defer. And as always, it's still wild to me that the NFL did not allow you to defer until, 2007 or 8, whatever that year was. Crazy. But 22-10. So they fumble, debatable recovery, but right off the bat, Jalen Hurts throws a quick touchdown. So the Eagles are up 7-0. Pretty much right off the bat, Jalen Hurts, we're worried about his rust and everything. That first touchdown, he's sitting in the pocket for about 7 seconds, finds Jahan Dotson wide open in the end zone for 11 yards. But after that, it was very much a defensive struggle. Yeah,
so like in the first couple of minutes, you get the debatable turnover, which is huge because obviously it sets Philadelphia up in the red zone. They get a touchdown off the back of that. The next thing that happens is Green Bay goes 3 and out. And like this, we're a couple of minutes into this game, and it almost literally couldn't have started worse for this team. Like, they've coughed up possession immediately. The other team scored a touchdown off the back of that possession, and then you go 3 and out, and they have the ball back. It's like this is a catastrophe for, an underdog team that needs to have some things go their way if they want to win. Now, okay, it then sort of settled down and became this defensive struggle, and more points were not, racked up, but – and this is like the first half, I think, was kind of a disaster for Green Bay, with the exception of the fact that the score didn't get away from them. Like, things had gone really badly for them, and they were only down 10.
Yeah. That was, similar to the Denver game, right? Like, you're not in control of this game whatsoever, but you're within striking distance at least. One of the biggest stories was Elgton Jenkins, maybe the best offensive lineman for the Packers, goes down early after just a handful of snaps. Nolan Smith just popped him on a pull. And Nolan Smith, incredible power taking on pullers in the run game is one of my notes from
As a tiny guy.
Yes, which is why I loved him. As 239 pounds, whatever he was, 240 pounds, the fact that he took on pullers the way he did. So he essentially injures Elgton Jenkins early in the game, and they have to put in Kadeem Telfort and Travis Glover eventually after Telfort gets benched after 3 penalties.
They were down to their third string left guard.
Yeah, so the Packers' offensive line had some serious issues in this game, in part because the guards in particular, when you're going up against this Eagles team with Milton Williams, Jalen Carter, rushing from the interior, just not great.
Yeah, it's fun. You had that play, that pulling play, the kind of offensive lineman comes around to kick out that side's edge rusher. You had both ways that can go in this game, and then I think the Buffalo game was the other one where I forget who it was in the Bills game, but he absolutely smushed a dude and, kicked him right out of that gap. And it's like, wow, that's some serious power. And then you have this version, which is Nolan Smith actually winning the contact so much that he actually injures Elgton Jenkins, who immediately goes off. It was Jonah Ellis was getting kicked out. I forget who the offensive lineman was for Buffalo. But, I think Ellis had his shoulder injured as well. So, dominant by the offensive lineman in one game and dominant by the defensive end in the other game, each of which ended up in a shoulder injury for the dude on the receiving end of the hit. But so injuries were pretty big in this game as well. Green Bay were down to their third string guard. They were battered at wide receiver as well. Obviously, Christian Watson a week ago injured his knee in the non-contact thing. Romeo Doubs goes down with another head injury for a guy that's struggled with concussions. Is already wearing the Guardian cap. His head cracks the turf. He has to be helped off and walked into the locker room in between 2 guys. That didn't look great. So they were down, and then Jaden Reed gets hurt as well. So you're down basically your top 3 wide receivers, and you're down to your third string left guard. Green Bay was getting pretty beat up, and then poor Nakobe Dean goes down with a knee injury that looked pretty bad for Philadelphia as well. So
Dean had been having a great year, but Green Bay, the injuries really mounted. I think you said last night, even if they had pulled this thing off, it's like what would they be able to bring? What would they bring to the table next week? They'd be going to Detroit if they had won with a depleted roster. So those injuries killed them. As did the turnovers, man. Jordan Love with first run PFF has him with 4 turnover-worthy plays, 3 interceptions. Sounds right. There's dropped interception early. Chucks one up. Darius Slay makes a great play on the ball for a turnover. Then there's a pick right before the half. Zach Bond continues his All-Pro caliber season. Did he make first-team All-Pro? Zach Bond?
I think so.
I forget.
Find out.
But probably should have if he didn't. And so Bond makes another big play. Jordan Love, again, just too many bad decisions in there.
Yeah, but that was another thing where, okay, you almost it could have been a catastrophe. Like Green Bay was trying to drive and get some points back before halftime and try and rescue what would have been a terrible half for them. Instead, he never sees Zach Bond over the middle. He's trying to actually hit the guy coming in behind him, just doesn't see him. I think because he was sort of hidden by the shallower receiver. Like you got receiver here, Zach Bond behind him, receiver coming in the other way. He's focusing on the guy behind him. I don't think he sees Bond like behind the first option, and he just jumps out, intercepts the ball. So it's like you just went from trying to get some points before the half yourself to actually Philadelphia has a shot to get more points before the half. But Green Bay's defense held again. The whole first half was Green Bay screwing up and then sometimes dodging the consequences of that screw up with points.
So at the end of the day, I mean, the Eagles' offense was not great.
No.
We got a stat here from Next Gen Stats. Eagles defense limited Jordan Love to 3 of 11 passing for just 58 yards and 3 picks on 10-plus yard throws. Quinyon Mitchell had one of those interceptions, and the Next Gen Stats had him as nearest defender, 2 catches for 10 yards. I hate the nearest defender thing, but we're using it here anyway. So Quinyon Mitchell continues another really nice rookie season.
Bond did make first-team All-Pro.
He did, yeah. So first-team All-Pro. It was great. You're right. It was more of a great play by Bond than just an awful misread by Love. And I would say, like, the Slay interceptions aren't always bad decisions. The Slay decision wasn't bad. It's one-on-one, throws it down the field. It's just slightly underthrown. And Slay does a great job of reading the receiver, knowing when to look up, and makes the play on the ball, which was outstanding.
I mean, I think the Bond thing was it was bad. It's not even a bad decision if you don't see the guy. It's just a mistake. But I think there was a reason he didn't see him. Like, I don't think it was just like, oh, why didn't you see that guy right in front of you? I think he was hidden by the shallower receiver that would have been basically blocking him.
Plus the running back that Bond was covering falls down and probably changes where he's going to be.
Right.
And,
But I don't think it was just like, oh, look, you threw the ball right to that linebacker that you never saw and you should have. I think there was reasons for it.
What else? So then, look, the Eagles' offense could not really capitalize on this. So A.J. Brown only 1 catch for 10 yards. We'll talk about the book in a minute as well on the sideline. Devontae Smith was the leading receiver, 4 catches for 55. Saquon Barkley, the stat line is an interesting one, 25 carries for 119. Now, when they were running out the clock, he took like a 15-yard gain or whatever it was. It could have been a 60-yard touchdown. He just takes a knee while they're up 12 to just end the game. Easily could have just been 60-plus yard touchdown, would have made the stat line great. But there was a point in this game where I thought Saquon had room and wasn't making guys miss he had some spectacular runs, but he had some also had a few that I thought he could have done a little bit more. So the Eagles' offense ended up with only 22 points off of all those turnovers. I'm not saying it's fully concerning, but it's something we've seen this year where a game where that feels like they should be putting up 35 or 40 points, and they kind of, it's closer than it should have been.
Yeah, I mean, it ends up being like the 2 outputs on offense were very, very similar with the exception that Green Bay had 4 turnovers. Like, outside of that, I mean, you're talking about 10 yards difference, less than 10 yards difference in terms of total yards. Green Bay had 1 more first down than Philadelphia did. They were significantly better on third down than Philadelphia was, and that was a big part of the Eagles not capitalizing here is they couldn't convert third downs generally on offense. So a lot of things, the time of possession was almost identical. Like, you basically had very similar outputs on offense, with the exception being Green Bay turned the ball over 4 times, and you can't do that and expect to win a game like this. At the half, Jalen Hurts had like 39 passing yards on 6 completions. And really, like, you have the very start of the game, they are set up in the red zone on a debatable call, right? Let's say incorrect call, maybe. That's 7 of your points, right? They get one play where they just launch a quick screen to Dallas Goedert, who just stiff arms Valentine for like 25 yards.
Great play by Goedert.
Just insane. Like, he's got, okay, you're going to like lose the initial contact against a 6'6" big tight end, but he like loses for 25 straight yards all the way into the end zone. And they show this clip on the sideline of like Xavier McKinney. Again, this is the thing that you hate, right? They're projecting what they think is happening in this conversation. But the description...
I hate it so much. You don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah, the description, I like the description, so I'm willing to go for it this time. The description from the commentary was like, Xavier McKinney was simply asking Valentine to explain what the hell happened on this play. And Valentine, therefore, must have been relaying, well, I went up to tackle him, and I got stiff-armed in the face, and then I continued to get stiff-armed in the face for 25 more yards until he got into the end zone, was essentially how that must have gone. So my point being, you've got like touchdown right away based off a beneficial field position on a debatable call. You have one more play, which is just Dallas Goedert deciding to dominate a dude for 25 yards. And then you have, late game Saquon Barkley taking over. But outside of that, the Eagles offense did very little.
I do want to give credit probably to Hurts on the Goedert play. It was 2nd and 1. Packers had an all-out blitz. He checks at the line
and got it out there.
Right, he gets it out there to Goedert, and it's one on, like, it sets up the one-on-one. It was 2-on-2 on the outside, and Goedert makes do with it.
No, it was a good play to turn an aggressive all-out blitz into just something positive. But that could have been a couple of yard gain versus 25-yard touchdown because Goedert just like dominates a dude all the way down to the goal line.
Josh Jacobs did his best to will the Packers back in, had a similar type of run, just like Goedert, what we just described, to set up the Packers for their first touchdown. Wasn't enough. I mean, they got within 16-10 after Jacobs had a big run, gets in from the 1, but the Eagles kind of have this slow, methodical offense that can eat time and everything. So they come back with a 63-yard drive to get the field goal to go up 9, 13 plays, 63 yards. It took 7 minutes off the clock. So is that right? Am I reading that right? Anyway, the Eagles are just a better team, man.
Yeah.
So I think the right team wins here. But my question with the Eagles is going to be A.J. Brown, Dallas Goedert, Devontae Smith, Saquon Barkley. You have these explosive playmakers. You don't need them in a game like this against Green Bay, but you're going to need them at some point, especially if 2 weeks from now they're going into Detroit. They're going to need those guys at their best.
Yeah, I mean, you can't ignore Philadelphia's defensive role in forcing those turnovers, but the big question would be, well, what happens the next time you play a game and the opposition doesn't turn the ball over 4 times, right? Like that's when you need this offense to actually show up and do more than it did in this game. Like the way that the advantages that they had in this game, they should have won much more comfortably than they did. In the end, I mean, we're 4th and 3 and Jordan Love throws a hair high. Heath can't quite get his foot down. That's they're down 9 at that point with 5 minutes left on the clock. Like that, we're down to like one play, keeping this game alive late in the game. It should have been a double-digit, well out of sight, multiple-score game. I mean, more 9 points is a multiple-score game, but like it should have been well in hand by that point, and it wasn't because the Eagles' offense did not take control of the game completely.
All right, man. Anything else on this? I mean, at high level, looking at the Packers, just 2 years ago, we said, hey, they're a young team. They're going to be, forced to be reckoned with over the next couple of years. That was before. Last year, they did make it to the Final 8. This year, losing the wild card round. I still think they're very well positioned for the future here, but a little bit of regression from Jordan Love here. The injury certainly didn't help yesterday, but this year, regression from Jordan Love. And a style change to more of a run-first attack with Josh Jacobs this year. It's going to be an interesting offseason for Green Bay to see how can they compete with the Eagles, the Lions, and some of the better teams in the NFC going forward.
Yeah, I don't think we really know what their trajectory is right now because they definitely didn't catch fire late in the season the way they did a year ago. They are, again, the youngest team in the NFL for the 2nd straight year, but like the injuries were a big factor. I mean, they were basically without their top receivers collectively. The top 3 receivers
against the very good Eagles.
Yeah, all disappeared against the number 1 defense in the NFL. Like, if you just told me that, you'd be like, well, they're not going to get much going on offense. Like, any team. Pick any team. Like, Detroit. Take away Detroit's top 3 receivers and throw them up against the number 1 defense in the NFL. Detroit's probably still able to run the ball, and I'm sure they'd find a way to have some kind of success. But you'd be like, if they got relatively shut down, it wouldn't shock you. So, yeah, Green Bay loses this game. They turn the ball over a bunch. That makes sense. I don't know that necessarily means, they stalled or they regressed or they're going backwards and this thing isn't still moving in the right direction. I think generally they just got unlucky with injuries, particularly in this game, and shot themselves in the foot a few times.
All right, anything else on this one?
No.
Nothing else from your notes? Nothing we missed?
No.
All right, we're going to get to the Broncos-Bills game in just a second here, but a shout out to our new friends over at Orgain. And so, as a former professional athlete, I care what I put in my body, especially when it comes to protein, Sam. That's why we're pumped to be sponsored by Orgain. Orgain believes real nutrition has the power to make a real difference in people's lives. Orgain's new 30-gram complete protein shakes offer protein-packed, real nutrition designed to satisfy your cravings without any added sugar. That is huge. Plus, they're an excellent source of premium, ultra-filtered protein with all 9 essential amino acids. Orgain's products are handcrafted with high-quality ingredients. So we love their 30-gram protein shake and love the taste. Love having that on the go as well. We hit the gym when we go on the road, when we go out to Vegas and Circa. So these are easy to take on the road and to have whenever we're traveling, Sam. You dragged me to the gym over there.
I don't think that's exactly how that went. I informed you I was going to the gym, and you
inspired me.
Go
you inspired me to go to the gym. Yeah. So having Orgain on the road is awesome. Love the taste. Love the convenience of being on the road and being able to use that. So the 30-gram protein shakes when we're traveling, absolutely huge. And then from protein powders to bars to shakes to tons of other nutritional products, Orgain has products that the whole family will love. So remember, there are no quick fixes when it comes to your health. If you want more protein, give Orgain 30-gram protein shakes a try. Head to Orgain.com/checkthemic and use code checkthemic for 30% off your order. That's the best offer you'll find, but you have to use the code checkthemic for 30% off. One last time, for 30% off, head to Orgain.com/checkthemic. Use the code checkthemic.
Yeah, I'm excited to try one of these later today. I did note that it has significantly more protein at fewer calories than the thing I normally drink, so it's off to a winner already.
A massive win-win, and I know you've been getting it after in the gym, so nice little compliment to that. All right, Buffalo Bills get the win in the 1 o'clock game. It was 31-7 over the Denver Broncos. Broncos came out fired, man. First drive, moving the ball, a 43-yard touchdown to Troy Franklin, 5-play, 70-yard drive, but that was it for the Broncos. They're down. They're up 7-0, and the Bills score the next 31 points. It was close though. Late into the third quarter, it was 13-7, and then Josh Allen with that spectacular 4th and 1, 24-yard touchdown to Ty Johnson, sliding across the back of the end zone. That put the Bills up 21-7, and the rest was history.
Yeah, that play, big. I mean, not a turning point because Buffalo they were the better team and they sort of had control at that point, but that would have been a huge high leverage turning point if it had gone the other way, and it was an inch or a frame from the TV view from going the other way with his leg about to touch out of the back of the end zone. Incredible play. I mean, the classic Josh Allen play that he's had all the way through this season, right? Like, let's just find some way of making this happen, find a guy deep down the field, turn it into a positive play. Could have been huge for Denver, but unfortunately for them wasn't.
Denver the Bills controlled this game completely. Denver set a record for lowest time of possession since 1983. Andrew Mason on Twitter said the Broncos' time of possession Sunday was just 18 minutes and 17 seconds. And that was their worst in any game. Their worst in any game since at least 1983 per Pro Football Reference. So the Bills were controlling the game, but they were getting stopped in the red zone, right? So, again, when you're predicting these games and we kind of half-joking say, the team that wins in the red zone and wins the turnover battle is probably going to win. Yeah, that's true, but it's also tough to predict. That's why it was 13-7 late into the third. And as you mentioned, if Josh Allen doesn't make a freak throw and Ty Johnson's knee barely hits before his foot hit out of bounds, if that doesn't convert, you're still talking about a 6-point game late into the third quarter despite the Bills controlling the game. And it was all because the Broncos made a few red zone stops. But, again, the right team won. The Bills controlled the game, but some, red zone stops kept the Broncos in it for a while.
I was kind of interested how concerned. I mean, look, generally speaking, halftime interviews with coaches are the biggest waste of time that exist. I was, however, kind of interested how concerned Sean Payton seemed to be at the time of possession stuff when they were talking to him at halftime. He was like, we've got to change the time of possessions. But most important stat for us in the second half, time of possession. Like, is it really?
It's a proxy. But listen,
it's
not that you have to win the stat. It's a proxy for we need to convert third downs. We need to get off the field on third.
But
downs.
he was concerned.
That's what leads to that stat.
But he was concerned about not the other way. He was concerned about Buffalo having the ball this much and keeping. Like, actually, I think that was working in his favor in this game. Like, Buffalo was playing this time control, ball control, chew up the clock, shorten the game style on offense, which for a team like Denver, where you're big underdogs, you're expected to lose, I think that's actually helping you. Like, keeping this game to as few a number of possessions as possible is helping the Broncos, because if you get your one bomb to Troy Franklin early in the game, boom, touchdown, that's a possession. Doesn't matter how long it took. If you keep your drive alive with a fake punt pass, and instead of kicking the ball back, you keep that possession going, like the Buffalo Bills not going high octane and trying to create as many possessions as possible and therefore as many touchdowns as possible from their side of the ball, I think it's actually helping you. Like, and he was like, "Oh, this is a concerning development at the half. I want to change this in the second half." I'm like, dude, this game right now couldn't be going much better from your perspective. Keep it going this way.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about in the Washington game, Tampa Bay only had 7 possessions. Each team only had 8 in this game.
Yeah.
And so, yes, when you shorten the possessions, if the Bills have 8 instead of 11, you have a better chance to win.
For example, that
but
play.
I think the coach speaking that, though, the proxy for that is like we can't have these long sustained drives. We can't trust our red zone defense over and over, which was true, because at some point you're going to give up a 24-yard touchdown on 4th and 1. You can't trust your defense to always bend but don't break. At some point you have to make a stop, and that part was right. And it's also a proxy for, like, get off the field on third downs. We got to make a stop at some point.
Yeah. I mean, at some point you need to score points, which is the bigger problem.
True.
But, like, that play we talked about, the 24-yard touchdown to Ty Johnson, which was a frame / an inch away from being a turnover instead of a touchdown. Let's say Denver got that play. That's 13-7. You're down a score with Buffalo having missed an extra point, so you can go ahead if you score a touchdown. Like, if they get that turnover and then they're able to execute a drive, now you're in the lead. Like, that, based off the back of how Buffalo had been playing the game, this ball control, chew the clock, minimize the drives, et cetera, type of game plan, the thing that you were, like, concerned about at the half could have actually turned that into, at the end of the third quarter, you would be going in with the lead. Like, that's why that's beneficial to you. Instead, he's like, I don't like this. I don't like the way this game's unfolding. I don't know. I think that was actually quite a good thing for Denver. They just couldn't capitalize.
They also had Bo Nix led a really nice drive before the half and got the Broncos into field goal range, and they doinked one. A lot of doinks. They doinked one that didn't go through. Not unlike Washington. You got to doink. If you're going to doink it, it's got to go through. Inside doink. You got to go inside.
You got to bank it in.
Yeah, you got to bank it in. So it was 10-7 at the half. Easily could have been 10-10. Really impressive drive by Bo Nix just before the half.
How would you feel about doinks that land in the field of play being live balls?
You, who wants to get rid of kicking, now wants to add this extra work.
Yes. So in order of priorities, my first priority as commissioner would be to eliminate kicking from the game. If that for some reason, if that met with resistance, my next suggestion would be, well, okay, if you miss the kick but it lands inside the field of play, it's live, play on, right? Field it, deal with it.
Yeah, why not?
That happens in rugby. I asked that because it happened a couple of times yesterday, and it almost cost the team that was defending
pretty arena
the game
league-ish.
multiple times.
Arena league.
Yeah. It's like, imagine, you get the relief of, oh, look, he doinked it, he missed. But then, like, the ball's live, and they might score anyway.
Where was the blocked extra point? Oh, the Texans game.
Yeah.
That was ridiculous.
Well, that's a live ball. Why shouldn't the doink?
Dicker just bats it, and the Texans are like, thanks, I'm going to pick it up and return it.
Took care of that one. No, dude, the ball's live.
We'll talk about that in an hour.
They were like instructing him on the sideline, like, dude, it's a live football. You can't just slap it down and be like, job done.
We talked about Josh Allen's sack avoidance and how great he had been at avoiding sacks. Broncos got him, twice?
Yep.
And one of them, he was begging for a call in the secondary, a hold, which was pretty bad hold. As I'm looking at it right now.
Was
it was a bad hold.
Patrick Surtain
that was missed.
Mugging a dude in the back of the end zone.
I think it was on Dalton Kincaid. So that was one of the reasons why Allen gets sacked on 3rd and 6.
Right.
And then there's the video of the official talking to Josh Allen.
Uh-huh.
And then there's the, what do I call it here? What kind of captioning?
Closed captioning?
No, this is deceptive captioning is what I call it. The deceptive captioners came out and said, here's the official apologizing.
Sounded like he did, though.
To Josh Allen.
Because they asked Josh Allen about it in the press conference. First of all.
Where did Pro Football Talk? Let me read where's the quote?
First of all, Josh Allen said he basically admonished him for yelling at him.
Right.
But then they asked him, they were saying that he was apologizing to you. Did that happen? Now, he didn't say it. He didn't say it did happen. But he sort of smiled sheepishly and said, I'm not going to address that right now, It was like when you take the fifth, it's not because you're an innocent man wanting to, stick to the rules, right? You take the fifth because you're guilty as hell and don't want to say it out loud. Like, Josh Allen didn't say, he didn't say no. He just smiled and went, I'm not going to address that right now. It sounded like it happened.
Vinovich told him, don't be yelling.
Yeah.
I wasn't happy with what was going on. Allen said I was yelling a little bit. He just said, don't be yelling.
Yeah.
So my bad. Sorry to Bill.
Right. But then they asked him, they were saying on the broadcast that he apologized to you. Is that what it was like? I'm not going to go into that.
Yeah, he shouldn't.
Yeah.
He shouldn't divulge.
But it sounded like he did,
I don't believe that.
You just don't want to believe it because that would mean that the invented guesswork projected
even if they guessed right
captioning
it's deceptive. Even if they guessed
correct.
Right. He's over here telling them you should have got this happened last week, right?
Uh-huh.
And it was the idiot that we said with the fake account. But it's like, oh, look at Josh Allen, such an all-pro. He's coaching up Drake May. He could be talking about himself for all we know. We have no idea. We have literally no idea what he's talking about.
See,
end it. Stop putting your own spun words into other people's mouths and reading their body language. Just stop it. Everybody stop.
Right. But you would hate for this to actually be correct because...
Yeah, I kind of would, yeah.
Yeah, because you hate this as a concept.
Yeah.
But every now and again, the guy guessing from, this is what I think is happening on this, silent movie, essentially, is going to be correct. And that undermines all of your entire point. Your entire railing against this as a concept gets undermined immediately.
But we have no evidence.
You guess
we
right.
have very little evidence that there was an apology from Bill Vinovich on the sideline. There's very little evidence that there was an apology.
Whether or not there was.
That's also not his call.
Right.
It's not his call, right? He's not the back judge.
Well,
he's not the back judge. He's not making that call.
But the buck stops with Bill.
No, it doesn't.
Of course it does.
No,
he's the head official.
Bill's not watching.
No, but it's like his crew. My point, it's your crew. You're the manager. You're the guy.
You think Bill Vinovich is over there being like, yeah, my back judge sucks. Yeah. He missed it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to apologize on his behalf. It's not even Bill's call. Why would he be apologizing for missing the call that he's not even looking at that during the play?
They're all Bill's calls.
No, they're not.
He's the head official.
There's 7 officials, right? There's 7 of those guys. But he's not over there apologizing for the back judge missing a call. He's over there doing what Josh Allen said he was doing, which was stop yelling, stop.
Have you learned nothing in your time managing people? The buck stops with the manager. They're all your calls. You are the manager. You're responsible. Bill, the guy with the white hat.
I don't know.
The white hat is the guy in charge of all of the decisions. Doesn't matter if it's some dumbass over there who missed it.
I'm going to apologize on behalf of my crew.
Exactly.
Just everybody stop trying to guess what people are saying on the sideline. We just went full shouty show.
You did.
I did. Sorry, I'm showing up on Wednesday. I'm going to make my shouty show debut on Wednesday.
Yeah, probably.
But it's common sense shouty show.
Anyway, whether or not he did apologize, he probably should have because that was an egregious missed hole in the end zone.
Absolutely a missed call.
Yeah.
So this game could have been even worse. Look, I think high level. I just want to speak high level here really quick. Denver exceeded expectations. Outstanding season for them. I mentioned this last night, and we forget what happened during the offseason. It looked like it was going to be a dead season because they had a lot of dead cap, right? The reason why the Steelers got Russell Wilson for $1 million is because Denver was paying.
Denver is paying him this year $28 million or whatever it is.
Right. And so when teams, sometimes they suck it up and they eat the dead cap, and it's like, all right, we'll take a step back so we can take a step forward. Well, Denver said no. Yeah. We're drafting Bo Nix. We're going to have one of the best defenses in the league, and they made it to the 7th seed. It was really an impressive season by the Broncos.
Denver is paying Pittsburgh's playoff quarterback $28 million a year.
Yeah. Which is why overall it's a good move by Pittsburgh, but
right.
I mean, limits their season.
Yeah, look, I think Denver's season this year, they're the one team who lost pretty badly score-wise in the playoffs, whose fan base is not necessarily calling for them to fire the head coach immediately. Like
it's the first one. They're not trying to get everybody fired.
Yeah. Sean Payton, I think, has generally, by opinion, exceeded expectations. He's gotten a team that was not expected to be particularly good into the playoffs. And, okay, 31-7 is not a particularly close scoreline, but I think they gave a pretty good account of themselves in this game. Like, Buffalo is expected to be one of the contenders, one of the best teams in the NFL. For a lot of this game, Denver held them pretty close, and then it got out of control, late in the third quarter, early into the fourth quarter. Buffalo went away and then took a stranglehold in the game, and Denver didn't come back. But they gave a pretty good account of themselves in this game. So, yeah, I think this was a good season from Denver overall. And then Buffalo, they looked really good overall. Like, this is a team that looks like they can go on the run that they haven't gone yet, get into a Super Bowl, potentially win a Super Bowl. Allen was spectacular. It's not going to make a difference for MVP conversations. That already got voted on. It's already done. It's going to be Lamar Jackson based off the All-Pro votes. But Josh Allen, I think, has an entirely deserving case. James Cook was a real difference maker in this game. He ran extremely well, ran tough, gained yardage almost all the time. I mean, it's so funny because coming out, James Cook, younger brother of Dalvin Cook, he was just an 80% version of Dalvin Cook as a prospect, right? You are exactly the same as your brother, only 80% as good, as fast, as dynamic. Okay, 80% of Dalvin Cook is a really good player, which is that's a compliment as opposed to a flaw in you as a prospect. When Dalvin Cook, 80% of peak Dalvin Cook is an extremely good player. I don't know if he's got to 100% yet, but I think he's better than 80 at the moment. I mean, he looks really good.
Yeah, he was fantastic in this game. And they do a lot where they'll run duo, which, if you're watching a duo play, can hit between the tackles, or you read the middle backer and you just kind of bounce outside. Cook has been really good at bouncing outside, using his speed to the edge. I mean, I thought this summed up Buffalo's season really well. Allen was extremely efficient, spectacular 4th and 1 touchdown to Ty Johnson, but he picked up 4 first downs with his legs. James Cook ran the ball well, and then they spread the ball. 55-yard touchdown to Curtis Samuel. Khalil Shakir led the team with 6 catches. They didn't need much from Amari Cooper, who just had 2 catches, but they might need Cooper this week, right? It might be Cooper versus Brandon Stevens of the Ravens that they attack and give him 10 targets. The Bills have different answers every single week. It's not just Allen. It's not just Stephon Diggs. It can be anybody. And so I thought, Bills were very effective and efficient on offense. Defense played really well. And now I just can't wait. I'm just glad that the matchups ended up the way they did. I can't wait for Bills-Ravens. I mean, it feels like what should be an AFC championship game, and it's in the divisional round, much like Kansas City-Buffalo was in the divisional round last year. It's a tough road for both teams because probably have to go through Kansas City. We'll see if the Texans can pull the upset, but you probably have to, beat a tough team, go to Kansas City to live that Super Bowl dream. But it's going to be potential game of the year here, Ravens-Bills next week.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, those two teams, I think either one of them looks like they have the quality to be a Super Bowl team, but there's probably 3 teams now in the AFC that look like they're capable of doing that, and there's only 2 spots in the championship game, let alone the Super Bowl. It's like the MVP conversation or the All-Pro conversation. There are 3 quarterbacks that played out of their minds this year, and there's only 2 All-Pro spots between first team and second team. Like, one of them is getting left off ballots completely, and that's just unfortunate. Like, that's just the reality of it. There are 3 teams in the AFC right now that look like they could win a Super Bowl, and only one of them can even get there, let alone win the thing.
Yeah, and look, the NFC's got some good teams as well.
Right.
But, man, the trio here, we'll talk about Houston in a minute. They were really impressive. They have some work to do to upset Kansas City, but Baltimore, Buffalo, and Kansas City all look outstanding. Anything else on the Bills game before we talk Ravens?
Just that, Denver's defensive stars stood up in this game. It wasn't enough. Zach Allen had a really good game. Nick Bonito had a really good game after his performance. Patrick Surtain played well, albeit got away with that hole in the end zone. And the same thing is kind of true of Buffalo's. Von Miller, we've talked about him as a potential X factor late into his career. Like, he had a pretty good game as well.
Just like 18 to 20 snaps,
yeah,
right?
like they only need him to be this sort of situational force in games like this and make a difference. He can. Like, I think a lot of the defensive sort of players that we expected to play well in this game were factors.
No, they definitely were. And shout out to the Bills' offensive line. They did a great job up front as well. Run blocking, pass blocking, really nice job overall by the Bills, all-around performance. Saturday night, Baltimore Ravens got the win over the Pittsburgh Steelers. It was 28-14. Felt worse than this. Ravens outscored the Steelers in the first half. What was the official? 308 to 59 in yardage in the first half. And like I said a little while ago, the Steelers took the ball as well. So they came out, they're like, hey, we've started playoff games horribly over the last 5 or 6 years under Mike Tomlin. We're going to get up early.
Now we're going to start them horribly faster.
Even worse. Yeah, pretty bad. I mean, they had been averaging 40 points allowed over their last 5 playoff games, and they were on pace for that until the Ravens slowed it down a little bit. So Baltimore wins this one pretty handily, 28-14.
Yeah, I mean, 300 yards in the first half is pretty ridiculous. The other stat that ended up being insane is rushing yards for Baltimore, 299. Rushing yards for Pittsburgh, 29. That's difficult, too.
A couple QB kneels from Baltimore, taking them under 300 as well.
That's difficult to overcome as a team when one team is going to put up 300 rushing yards against you and the other one is going to have basically 30.
Yeah, it was an interesting one early on because the broadcast had mentioned that the Steelers said, hey, we're not going to let Derrick Henry beat us. We're going to key on Derrick Henry. And you kind of saw that. Like, Lamar Jackson had 6 or 7 carries in the first 20 plays by the Ravens. I mean, his playoff career high was 20 carries going in. I was checking it because he was on pace for about 25 to 30 carries at one point. It was Lamar, not only on keepers, but a couple scrambles in there. And so he was doing a lot of running early on. And then later you see, okay, then the Steelers start to key on Lamar Jackson, and Derrick Henry breaks free for a 44-yard touchdown run. Everything that we had said coming into the year, how do you defend those two guys? It started a little slow, at least in that Kansas City game early in the season, but this was a game that showed that, right? How do you defend Derrick Henry? How do you defend Lamar Jackson on the ground? Really difficult to do both. And at the end of the day, you've got Henry with 186 yards on 26 carries. Lamar had over 80 yards. And good luck trying to stop both of those guys.
Well, the big problem that Baltimore presents, like they're running this, read option look essentially the whole time. And when that first started to become a bigger part of NFL offenses, there was that initial problem of, oh, look, all these teams are running the read option and defenses don't know how to defend it. Defending the option is essentially assignment football, right? It's just making sure that you have each part of the option assigned to somebody. And as long as everybody makes their reads correctly and sticks to their assignment, you've got a body on a body. The problem is with Baltimore, the two relevant people you're focusing on are Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Like, even if you have a guy assigned to them, a lot of the time those guys are making that guy miss and making him look stupid, right? So you can have it assigned all you like, but like the other dude is Lamar Jackson or Derrick Henry, and they're going to make your assignment look ridiculous.
Yeah,
so
they're winning the numbers advantage.
Yeah. So like you have to over-assign to both of them, and that's just impossible to do without opening other things up like catastrophically. So at the moment, they are just too good. Like the Steelers, who have a pretty good defense, simply could not stop whichever side they were not focusing on, right? Like we're gonna really focus on Derrick Henry. We're gonna like absolutely crash down on that, stuff the box. Well, then Lamar's just one-on-one in the open field with somebody, and almost nobody in the NFL can stop that. Or you go, well, let's do the opposite. Let's really hyper-focus on Lamar Jackson. Let's make sure there's nowhere for him to go. He'll hand the ball off. And then Derrick Henry's got a fairly light box up the middle, and the dude has consistently racked up 2,000 yards a season in his career against heavy boxes, let alone light boxes. So Baltimore's just too good right now. Their playmakers on, using those read option looks are too dynamic, too good, too big, too explosive for you to be able to hope to contain them with just normal humans.
And as we've said coming in through the years, the Steelers have played the Ravens offense pretty well, Lamar's offense pretty well. They did get the win against them earlier this year, beat them in the kind of a slugfest with 6 field goals. The second matchup in Baltimore, Ravens, much more effective. Lamar played one of his better games instead of one of his worst games. And again, they were unstoppable. A couple key plays there. It was 7-0. Pittsburgh punted on 4th and 2 and then on 4th and inches in their own territory. And those are the ones, the 4th and inches one, I think it was around their 30-yard line, whatever it was. You don't see that in the NFL very often anymore. Any 4th and inches at any point in the field, except maybe inside your 15. But even then, we saw the Ravens do this on Monday Night Football against the Chargers. 4th and inches is almost, 90%, 95% go in today's NFL. It used to not be, right? It used to only be, maybe if you're on the opponent's territory, 4th and inches will go. But the Steelers punted, and then I think that was right when the Ravens came back with 13 plays, 85 yards, all on the ground, a couple scrambles in there, but it was pretty much running it down their throats. And that was it, man. Ravens got up 14-0. Then they tacked on one more touchdown to go up 21-0 before the half. 9-play, 90-yard drive.
Those are the decisions where if you want to construct a case to fire Mike Tomlin, like those are the decisions that you start stacking up, because other coaches are simply not making that call anymore. And you're right. Maybe they used to 20 years ago, but that has become an accepted go call, go down in distance in today's NFL. And, in a very reductive, simple form, they turned down 4th and inches early in the game and ended up having to go for whatever it was, 4th and 14, late in the game. It's like, okay, you want to have the first one. You don't want to have the second one. And by not extending that drive, Washington did it multiple times in that game. Even Denver went for that fake punt instead of, they tried to keep drive alive knowing that 4th and 4 was gettable and they had a play up their sleeve. Instead, even for a defense, like Dan Quinn's a defensive coach and the dude's going for 4th downs all the time. It's just not an excuse anymore. You can't be like, I'm going to trust my defense. Your defense is getting gashed. Your defense is not stopping them. This is not, a situation where it's like a 6-3 football game. Nobody's getting anything going. Like, you cannot stop this offense. You need this 4th down. You can't punt it away because you haven't gotten it. Like, that's just it's an archaic, old way of thinking that's been outdated. And if you want to say Mike Tomlin is a problem, that's the type of decision you point to and say, we can't have that. Like, a coach can't be making that call anymore. Now, I think you can argue that can be offset by the positives that Mike Tomlin brings to the table. I think generally there's a pretty nuanced conversation to be had for, do we move on? Do we keep Mike Tomlin? And obviously that won't be had in any shouty show anytime soon. But it's not as simple as the guy's lost 6 straight playoff games, therefore get rid of him. Like, how many of those would you expect them to have won, right? And this is an example of that, right? Baltimore, we saw a couple of weeks ago, they are significantly better than Pittsburgh right now.
Yep.
So at 28-14, like, this is about, it was a 9-point game, right? A 9.5-point spread or whatever it was. This is about what you expected this game to look like, and that's exactly what it looked like. So I don't know that you can say to Mike Tomlin, well, you lost this game fairly comfortably, therefore you failed. He was supposed to lose this game. The median outcome of this game for Mike Tomlin was comfortable loss. You can point to that decision and say, you didn't help yourself here. Like, this was a play that could have gone your way and helped you claw back some win percentage in a game where you were probably going to lose anyway. You didn't help yourself, and that's a problem. But I don't think you can just say, you lost easily, therefore you're the problem.
No, I'm completely with you on that. And I think there are arguments for, has he topped out in Pittsburgh? Is it just they need something fresh? They need to reach a higher ceiling? I've said over the last few weeks or, the year, it's like, okay, when he has Ben Roethlisberger, when you like any other coach, when you have a top 5 to 8 quarterback, you've got chances to get to the title game and get to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. And Russ played pretty well in this game, but he like, the one good thing that Pittsburgh did is they leaned into the variance there and they stopped running the ball and just chucked it deep. And I said, okay, if you can't stop the Ravens offense, you got to hit some moon balls. You got to hit some deep shots. And Russ hit a few of those. But what's Tomlin supposed to do with Kenny Pickett and Russell Wilson and Mason Rudolph as your quarterbacks and old Ben Roethlisberger, right? The old man Roethlisberger.
And to remember, to remind people, the last time Ben Roethlisberger had a PFF grade above 80, which is not a particularly high number.
2018?
17.
17.
18, he had pretty good stats, but his PFF grade was already declining, and he was at 78 that year. And then after that, he was trash. But like, that's a long time. And that encompasses quite a lot of those losses in the playoffs, right? So we've got old busted-ass Ben Roethlisberger, Mason Rudolph, Kenny Pickett, Russell Wilson. Like, which one of these guys are you expecting to beat the MVP in a one-on-one matchup? Like, it's not happening. That's part of why they've lost 6 straight.
And my perspective is there's really only a handful of coaches who have won with multiple quarterbacks. I'm talking getting to conference championship games with multiple quarterbacks. Andy Reid's done it. John Harbaugh's done it, right? John Harbaugh's won a Super Bowl with Joe Flacco, and he's at least in the conversation with Lamar Jackson, right? Only a handful of these guys have done it. Kyle Shanahan. So those guys exist, but so Pittsburgh could chase that guy that could win regardless of quarterback, or Mike Tomlin, much like Mike Evans, right? Always gets 1,000, but he doesn't get a lot of 1,500-yard seasons, right? It's consistent. And you're on the green, but you need a quarterback to hit the long putt at some point.
I'm definitely not saying that you cannot do better than Mike Tomlin. I am saying that you should probably be careful to ensure that you are before you make a decision to get rid of him. Like, you can do better than Mike Tomlin, but I would say the average replacement for Mike Tomlin will not. Like, that's the reality of what Pittsburgh is looking at right now. This is frustrating. We're trapped in this good, not great world, and that's annoying. We want to be winning Super Bowls. We want to be winning playoff games, but the chances are, from the baseline you're at right now, you're taking a step back, not forward, when you make a change.
And we'll talk about this offseason. One of the more fascinating QB decisions in recent years, because they got Russell Wilson without having to pay the signing bonus. So you got cheap Russell Wilson, cheap Justin Fields, and you could say it worked, right? They got 10 wins out of it relative to expectations. Lost their last 5, all against good playoff teams or caliber teams like the Bengals. So maybe it didn't work, but I think it did overall. We'll talk more about that in the offseason. For Baltimore, outstanding effort. Offense was unstoppable. Lamar was outstanding again, and they played their type of game, right? Lamar goes 16 of 21 for 175, 2 touchdowns. One of those games where he doesn't have to throw the ball like crazy. He ran the ball a lot early on, but I do believe that helped set up Derrick Henry. I think that style, and I'm not trying to look forward to Kansas City because I don't know who wins this week. I do think Baltimore matches up pretty well against the Bills. We saw that earlier in the year. I want to see if they could do this against Kansas City if they get the opportunity. I want to see if they can play this style all the way through to the Super Bowl. Can they continue to play this clean brand of Ravens football where they're running the ball like crazy, super efficient passing attack, and it's like, all right, good luck. Can you stop anything? And defenses never seem to have the right answers. Can they do it all the way through the playoffs here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for all the matchups that remain. Right now, this Baltimore offense looks too difficult to defend for anybody. They can kill you any which way. Either you overcommit to Derrick Henry, or you overcommit to Lamar Jackson, or you overcommit to both of them, and then the passing game is wide open and Lamar Jackson's able to hit that. And like, absent Lamar having a random weird game where he just decides to miss a bunch of throws, I don't know how you stop them.
That's it. Anything else on Ravens-Steelers?
They didn't have the Ravens, that is, Zay Flowers.
And
it didn't matter. Number one, I think Rashad Bateman is more important to them than Zay Flowers is anyway. And number two, it didn't matter because they ran for 300 yards and they didn't need the passing game that much.
And Zay's coming back for this Bills matchup.
Yeah.
It's in Buffalo. I misspoke on the preview show for whatever reason. I know it's in Buffalo, the 2 seed. I think I said it was in Baltimore on the preview show, but I can't wait, man. This is going to be awesome. Ravens-Bills next week. It's the Sunday evening game at 6:30 in divisional round. I like how they do that now, divisional round, 3 and 6 on Sunday. So we're done with 1 p.m. starts this year.
Okay.
That's it. Anything else on Ravens-Steelers here?
Nope,
that's it. Houston Texans 32. Oh, wait. I got something else to say. Don't I, guys? Talk about our friends over at Rocket Money. Start of the year is the perfect time to get organized, set goals, prioritize what matters most. Top priority is financial wellness, and that's Rocket Money. So they pull together all of your spending across different accounts. You can clearly track your spending habits, see where you can cut back. And I just learned that 85% of people have at least one paid subscription going unused every month. So that's where Rocket Money comes in. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. It monitors your spending and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money's dashboard gives you a clear view of your expenses across all of your accounts. You can easily create a personalized budget with custom categories to help keep your spending on track. You see your monthly spending trends in each category to know exactly where your money's going. You get alerts if your bills increase in price, and if there's unusual spending activity, or if you're close to going over your budget. And Rocket Money will even try to negotiate lower bills for you. They automatically scan your bills to find opportunities to save. Then you can ask them to negotiate for you. So they'll deal with customer service so you don't have to. That's awesome. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved over a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/checkthemic today. That's rocketmoney.com/checkthemic.
Yeah, it's pretty sobering to fire up that list of all your subscriptions. See them one after another.
I'll tell you what,
how much money you're just burning through on a monthly basis.
I need to fire up Rocket Money right now because I signed up for I hadn't been doing ESPN Plus, but I signed up for the Cardinals-Chargers game.
That's how they get you.
But then
you just let it ride every month. Forget about it.
Oh, man. But then I needed to renew the Disney account, and I got ESPN and Disney, and there's like a bundle, but then there's a bundle if you add Hulu, and I got to figure out what the best.
It's a mess.
I need Rocket Money to help sort all of it. All right, Houston Texans, 32-12 over the Los Angeles Chargers. Texans move on, going to Kansas City for the Saturday afternoon slot because that's what the Houston Texans do.
Yeah.
Good win by Houston, man. It was 6-0 Chargers. They were moving the ball early, but stopped in the red zone a couple times. It was only 6-0. Houston comes back with a huge 99-play drive on 13 plays, sparked by a couple key ones, including the scramble drill off a fumble from C.J. Stroud. But that was really what sparked Houston, and never looked back after that.
It really was. That play changed the game. Because the first half was an absolute disaster class from both teams. Like, the Texans fumble in the first play of the game. It was a complete mess in the first half. And then, that one play that looked like, oh, no, it's just another play in the latest line of catastrophes from both teams. Stroud ends up scooping it up, running for his life to right field, and then total breakdown in coverage in the Chargers secondary, and suddenly he's turned it into a big play. That's propelled them a good chunk of the way down the field and getting them towards scoring position. And that play did seem to kind of shake him out of whatever he was dealing with early in the game. And then the Texans stopped making the same volume of mistakes. The Chargers didn't. I mean, Justin Herbert on the other side continued to have a disaster of a game. And that became the difference. Like, there was essentially 3 of the 4 halves from both teams were catastrophes, and then Houston's offense shook itself out of that for the second half.
Yeah, Stroud had a bad early interception, and then the Chargers come right out, try to take a shot play, and Herbert makes a bad decision, chucks it up into double coverage for a pick as well. Texans had a blocked punt and a blocked extra point in this game that eventually brought back for 2. It was Drake in the Drake Holiday says in the chat, sloppy game. I think, very sloppy.
It was, and like there were people out there trying to claim that this was like really high level defense, and it was because look, I think that there's an argument sometimes. Low scoring, everyone's like, this game sucks. A lot of time it's low scoring because both defenses are playing amazing football, and it's actually still a really good game, just not the one you want to see with points everywhere and easy scoring. And it's not a Big 12 track meet, right? This was not one of those games, in my opinion. This was a game where the offenses were simply not executing at all, and it was ugly because it was sloppy, not ugly because the defenses were amazing. Now, there were some good defensive plays, but by and large, to me, this game was much more just bad offense than it was good defense.
I mean, even one of the first drives for the Chargers, Will Dissly wide open for what should have been a first down. He drops it.
Yeah.
And that was part of the reason why the Chargers had to settle for 3. Later in the game, Will Dissly basically drops the pass, throws it into Derek Stingley's hands for an interception, not absolving Herbert of the other ones. He had 4 picks, 3 of them definitely on him, and I think it was 4 total turnover-worthy plays per PFF. It was an ugly game for Justin Herbert. But yeah, it was some bad offense, I think, on both sides.
It was a lot of bad offense. It was some bad special teams as well, as you already talked about. I mean, this was there was a lot going wrong with this game, and then eventually, Houston pulled themselves together for long enough to win it.
Let's talk from a Chargers point of view first, and we'll finish with the Texans and look ahead to their Chiefs game a little bit. But I thought this game summed up, right? We talked coming in like, hey, if Quentin Johnston just had a career high 13 for 186 against the Raiders, if he can figure it out, if he can become dependable next to Ladd McConkey, the Chargers have something. Well, he wasn't dependable.
Narrator. He did not figure it
out. He had 0 catches on 5 targets, including the one you mentioned an hour and a half ago on the show. On a key 4th and 1, they're running a whip route to the 6'5", downfield mismatch potential weapon. A whip route, a little in and out. Like, this is Wes Welker's route.
It's Ladd McConkey's route.
It's Ladd McConkey's route. Julian Edelman had the game-winning touchdown in the Super Bowl with a whip route. You don't run it with Quentin Johnston, who not only ran it short of the sticks, caught it for a loss of 1 yard, but eventually they said he didn't actually catch it. It was incomplete. It was bad.
I mean, it didn't matter either way. But, I don't understand why you would do that. You have Ladd McConkey, who, number one, is the entire source of offense for your team at this point. Number two, is very suited to that type of play. Like, he's very good at running those types of routes. And number three, at this point, was not, the way they set up was not covered by Derek Stingley. Now, maybe it would have been had they run that play for Ladd McConkey as opposed to Quentin Johnston. I just do not understand. That's calling a play that is horrifically suited to the skill set of the player you're asking to do it. Like, there's a lot of reasons to criticize Quentin Johnston, generally. Him not being able to win on a whip route against Derek Stingley is not necessarily one of them. Now, he didn't run past the sticks at any point in that route. That was a problem. But that's bad play calling. It's bad play calling, and then it's bad execution of the bad play call, which is why you don't convert on 4th and 2. This is the thing, right? You have the initial decision. Do we go for 4th and 2, yes or no? Yes. Okay? Have no problem with that decision. I would imagine most, though who knows if all, of the analytics models say go. We go for it on 4th and 2. What are you calling? I'm going to call a whip route to Quentin Johnston against Derek Stingley. Cool? No, it's not cool. That's a dumbass idea. No. Call something different, or at least call it to a different receiver. I could not understand that play call at all, and it got what it deserved. Like, it got punished by not converting on 4th and 2.
Right. So, as I was kind of leading into, oftentimes in the playoffs, your weaknesses get magnified. And there were elements of the Chargers offense that seemed to get better during that. And Justin Herbert played really well down the stretch and maybe made the most of their pass catchers. But when Ladd McConkey, who's awesome, man, he is outstanding, 197 yards out of their 242 receiving yards, including the 86-yarder that maybe almost got the Chargers a little bit of life and got them back in it after a bad sequence. But 197 yards, NFL rookie record, but no one else. Number 2 on the team was Will Dissly with 16 yards, and Dissly had 2 disastrous drops in this game. So the Chargers need some pass catchers, and their lack of pass catchers, their lack of Ladd McConkey weapons really showed up in this one.
It did, and the other thing is the lack of the run game. The one area where I would say Houston's defense did really, really well is against the run. They had multiple players with negative sort of run stops on defense. Al-Shaair, who was back for them. We talked about on the reaction show, right? It's not necessarily that he's the heart and soul of the defense, all the wishy-washy stuff. Like, he's the guy that calls the signals. Al-Shaair missing from the lineup is pretty important for that team because he's the guy with the green dot in his helmet. So Al-Shaair makes one. Eric Murray had one as well. Fatukasi made one. Kamari Lassiter had a really nice stop one-on-one against the run. They really shut down this Chargers run game. And remember when the Chargers lost J.K. Dobbins and suddenly the offense is very different. When they didn't have him being a dynamic rushing threat, it didn't look the same level of offense. This Dobbins played in this game, but they effectively didn't have J.K. Dobbins. Like, the Texans did such a good job of shutting down the run that they forced the Chargers to be that one-dimensional passing attack again. The one-dimensional passing attack had only Ladd McConkey functioning because Dissly dropped everything that was sent his way. Quentin Johnston didn't catch anything sent his way. So it's like, this is the most one-dimensional offense that exists in the NFL. It is basically how much can Justin Herbert hit Ladd McConkey. And that's it. That's all the Chargers had.
Which was often. but not enough, man.
Well, yeah, and can he do that without turning the ball over? And the answer to that was no. I mean, Justin Herbert is going to start having the same conversation as Lamar Jackson has had in terms of, like, does this guy wilt in the playoffs? This is now 2 fairly significant implosions by Justin Herbert. And look, Herbert has been in this category of, like, is he up there with the very best quarterbacks in the NFL? And look, one of the things that differentiates those guys is, can you still do really well in disadvantageous situations? Like, if a team takes away your run game and your number 1 wide receiver drops everything that's thrown his way, and your tight end can't catch a cold, and you're basically limited to one guy, it's just you and Ladd McConkey, can you actually make that work? And the answer was a resounding hell no, I can't. I'm going to actually turn the ball over more in this game than I have in the entire regular season. That's how I'm going to react to that. There's no way of looking at that favorably for Justin Herbert. Now, maybe it's just one game variance and, it's anecdotal and these things happen, but that's happened a couple of times for him now, and that's a pretty damning indictment of him as a quarterback.
Well, yeah. I saw somebody in the chat ask, why does he not get the same treatment as Lamar Jackson? I would just say Lamar's standards are higher, right? Because Lamar's better. I mean, he's had 2. Lamar's better, and his performances have been as bad, if not worse, than Herbert, especially relative to the expectations.
But we're going to start having that conversation.
I'm fine having the conversation, right? I mean,
that's where we're going based off the back of this game.
I still think Herbert had a really good year, but going into the playoffs here, yeah, you'd like to see more from this.
Like that.
3 turnover-worthy plays and bad decisions, right? They were bad decisions. Yeah. And just an inaccurate throw. The real backbreaker, it's 13-6. It was just 13-6. And he overthrows a short route right to Eric Murray, who takes it back for a pick 6. Yes. That was a killer. Going back to the Jags game that they blew in the playoffs, it wasn't all Herbert. The defense blew it pretty badly as well. But he missed a wide-open touchdown in that game. Wide-open touchdown. That certainly would have stopped the 28-point comeback or whatever it was at the time. So
even if you take away the dropped interception, right, the one that hit Will Dissly in the hands and became an interception, even if you remove that from Herbert's game, he had the same number of interceptions as he had for like a giant chunk of this season. Like, it's for the entire season, right? The entire regular season. So it's like 3 in the regular season, then 3 in this game outside of the 4th that wasn't his fault. That's not acceptable for a quarterback that's supposed to be as good as Justin Herbert is.
No, it was awful. It was terrible. From a high-level standpoint, though, I look at the Chargers and think, okay, good year 1 under Jim Harbaugh. Right? And we went in and, they need 2 to 3 more pass catchers to go with Ladd McConkey. And, I mentioned this on the reaction show, but somebody tweeted at me like, oh, they chose Joe Alt over Malik Neighbors. I said, that's fine. Do that again. Joe Alt is I think a future all-pro right tackle. That good, right? He'll be fine. And I'm fine with that decision because they also did the whole tackle first, and then they got Ladd McConkey on the turn. That's an outstanding first 2 picks. But there's more work to be done. They were coming off of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams contracts. They were moving to this more run-heavy approach with Greg Roman. But, yeah, they need 2 to 3 more pass catchers here.
Yeah.
Whether, a tight end, a complementary piece to Ladd McConkey, and maybe something else, deep threat. So, yeah, there's more work to be done. Good first year. And my apologies to the Houston Texans, right? Because they kind of backed into the playoffs. They did it with poor performances against the Chiefs and the Ravens. I completely soured on them. But
it's
the same
good.
Final Four. It's the same Final Four as last year's AFC.
Yeah.
And coming into this in the offseason, the way the Texans made those aggressive moves, Stephon Diggs, and we're going to build around C.J. Stroud in year 2. We're going to make moves to go compete with the Bills, the Ravens, and the Chiefs. It didn't look like they could for most of the season. And I'm not saying they're there. I'm not saying they're going to go upset Kansas City, but have a little more confidence that they can maybe pull an upset the way this defense did play. And if C.J. Stroud can put together a full game here.
Yeah, so it was interesting because we said in the preview, like, the way that the Texans would be able to win this game is if C.J. Stroud basically decides he's going to have the C.J. Stroud Georgia game or the C.J. Stroud Cleveland game in the playoffs a year ago, where he just goes, I don't care what the rest of the team looks like. I'm going to raise my level and the level of everybody around me. I'm going to make enough plays. And he really didn't do that in this game. Like, Stroud did not play well.
Nico Collins did too. Nico Collins is such a game changer.
Yeah.
When they can get him going, he has the ability to maybe carry an offense for a non-quarterback.
But they won this game and ended up winning it fairly comfortably without Stroud carrying the team on his back. Stroud made some plays, like there were some spectacular plays in here as well, but there was also some really bad plays in there. Like he did not sort of drag this team himself. And actually, we said this
with 4 turnover-worthy plays. That's a big number.
One of them was that the Derwin James interception thing.
That was a huge play too. Derwin essentially picks him off in the end zone and just doesn't completely secure it.
Yeah, but that could have been. I mean, again, that's one of those plays where you're like, because of the outcome, which had to be sort of looked at an instant replay and poured over for a while. That's a massive swing in that game, depending on what they decide based off instant replay and slow-mos and all that kind of thing. Point being, I don't think Stroud was the reason that the Texans pulled themselves out of this funk and got it together. Bobby Slowick's taken a ton of crap this year for this offense sort of falling apart relative to a season ago. I think Bobby had a very good game, and obviously we're biased as guys who used to work with him and friends with him, but I thought Bobby called a good game here. The Texans were not having success early. He basically abandoned the run and said, go beat Joe Burrow, right? It's in your hands, CJ. Drop back passing game, get it out quickly. Like the run game isn't here anyway right now. Just diagnose the defense, put the ball in the air, get it out quick. And that was working. That ended up, he dialed up a couple of really nice play calls as well that did give him places to go with the football. And then late in the game, that had opened up the run game. And suddenly Joe Mixon is able to really take control of this game and chew up clock and, run the game out. And they were able to take control late in a situation that wasn't on the table early. Like if they tried to do that with Mixon in the first half, I don't think it would have worked. I don't think that was on the table. So I think Slowick deserves some praise, having been ripped apart all year by a lot of people.
Yeah, it was a really nice second half by Mixon running the ball in that offensive line. But other key plays, Stroud with a 27-yard scramble just before the half to help set up free 3 points.
Yeah.
Or
he made some big plays.
He made a few big plays, but he put the ball in harm's way a couple times, including just dropped that snap. And it was a spectacular recovery, but just dropping the snap as a starting point, not great. They're going to have to play cleaner against Kansas City. The defense, though, the pass rush with Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter, they were getting after Herbert early on. I don't think Kansas City's when you throw deep on Stingley, it reminds me a lot of Richard Sherman, right? Where you don't throw deep passes.
You need to be accurate because
if you miss it a little bit short, he goes up and makes a play, and he did that on the deep ball where he got an interception. The other one was kind of a gimme.
If you're off, he's going to catch it.
But I don't see Kansas City they have enough other, weapons that they're just not even going to try that, which will be interesting.
This was impressive by Houston. Their defense is nasty. The only problem I think is that they have the most glaring Achilles heel of any team left in it. That offensive line is still an issue. They were saying going into this game, this is the best group of 5 they've had for a while. And it's maybe, I don't know that that's true, but even if it is, the group of 5 is Blake Fisher at right tackle, Juice Scruggs and Jarrett Patterson, Titus Howard a tackle moving into guard to cover that spot, and then the one really good player at left tackle, Laramie Tunsil. That's a bad offensive line still. It's just, you can't, I don't know that you can find an Achilles heel as glaring as that at any unit in the rest of those contending teams. Just stick with the AFC for a minute. Where's Buffalo's offensive line that looks like that? Or, the comparable unit anywhere on Buffalo's roster. Same thing with Baltimore, Kansas City. I mean, they don't have, each one of those teams does not have one of those units that can undermine the whole team.
In addition to those other 3 teams having essentially an O-line eraser in their quarterback, right? A guy that if the O-line's wrong can still make the defense wrong. In Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, those guys also do great work even when the offensive line is subpar. Stroud made some big plays with his legs outside of structure. I think he's going to have to be special this week against Kansas City.
Same analysis as a week ago. If they want to win this game, they need Stroud to be special and carry the team, even though he didn't.
Really this week, though.
Yeah,
for real
definitely this time.
Yeah, definitely this time. Anyway, coming into the season, I thought the Texans should have been in the Final Four, and they made it. They're here.
Sure.
And they'll go to Kansas City. Lost. It was only 27-19 in Week 16. I do believe the Chiefs controlled the game a little bit more than that. That was like the Stroud to Tank Dell spectacular touchdown where Tank Dell got hurt. By the way, if he was healthy, that would would help Houston's offense.
It's not all it's not necessarily Houston's failings. It's like this team has been battered by injuries. The offensive line has dealt with a lot of injuries, and they're down 2 of their top 3 wide receivers. And we just talked about with the impact that they had with Green Bay, right? If you take away their 3 top receivers against a good defense, it's not going to go well. Okay, Houston has Nico Collins, and that's their number 1, but they're down 2 and 3. That's a pretty important loss.
The Texans defense has to play better this week. So that'll kick off the divisional round Saturday afternoon in Kansas City. Anything else on this one?
No, I think we're done with this game. Got no more use for it.
Well done.
Why do you think that the building is shaking dramatically? Are we about to...
Are you noticing? I'm not feeling
You can't hear or feel the shuddering of this building. You're not...
No, I hear that. I got that now.
Yeah. I'm just saying, if this is some kind of gas problem and the last thing you see on this broadcast is just a flash of white and then it goes dead, that's what happened.
It stopped? No, it's not.
No, it's still going.
Somebody running upstairs?
No, that's some kind of significant... That's a building thing, not a person running on the spot upstairs.
Is there an earthquake, a nonstop earthquake here in Cincinnati?
That feels unlikely.
We're going to get through this thing and get out of here. Let's finish the show.
Yeah, quickly, before the building blows up.
Tell you about our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cash. We've enjoyed playing PrizePicks all season long. You could... get distracted. PrizePicks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. PrizePicks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out even if your lineup isn't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. And PrizePicks is the only real money daily fantasy platform with an injury insurance policy, so your lineups stay in play even if one of your plays gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks keeps your lineup live. PrizePicks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When my picks hit, I can get my money in as quickly as 15 minutes. And I know producer Ben here is rooting for Matthew Stafford for a very specific PrizePicks lineup. Needs a couple touchdowns from him tonight. So download the app today. You could use code CheckTheMic. You get $50 instantly after you play your first $5. That's code CheckTheMic. You get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. And then we left a little time here.
Just before we do that, I want to. This will be a fun clip for social. Get you into some trouble. Everyone off the back of those games, yesterday and the day before. That's like, well, this is an embarrassment. These teams shouldn't have made it. The Cincinnati Bengals should have been in the playoffs. How do you think the Bengals would have done against any of the teams that won? Would the Bengals have given a better account of themselves than the Denver Broncos, the Los Angeles Chargers, etc.?
The Bengals would have played a better game than the Broncos yesterday, yeah.
Okay. No, so they'd have done better against Buffalo. Would they have done better against Baltimore?
Yes.
And would they have beaten the Houston Texans?
Yes.
Okay. So so what you're saying is that the system's a sham. The Bengals should have been in the playoffs.
Yeah. The committee got it completely wrong. Mm-hmm. The Bengals should have been in. I mean, the college football people were coming in being like, this wild card round's as bad as the first round of the college football playoff. It's all bad. I don't know. The league's just kind of top heavy. Top 8 teams, top 6 teams really might feel right. So, yeah, Bengals would have done better than a few teams. They wouldn't have stopped Buffalo. They would have gone to Buffalo if they had gotten in. So they would not have stopped Buffalo, much like Denver couldn't.
Right.
But they would have put more points on the board.
Put up points.
Yes. It would have been closer.
But that would have made the Buffalo's ball control game plan. That would have made that pretty interesting. Cincinnati's scoring every time you give them the ball. You want to chew up 8 minutes of clock every time?
Cincinnati was also just interestingly matched up against Buffalo and Kansas City. They've had a lot of success against those 2 teams in particular, right? So the matchup thing with some of those best teams in the AFC
it's also
always changes things.
It is. I think it's more interesting when you have a team that is extremely potent on offense, even if they have no defense, because at least you know they're going to make it. You're always dangerous at that point, right? Whereas if you find a team like Denver, where their defense is really, really good and the offense is not. As soon as if you find any way of scoring against the defense, well, then the game's basically done because they're not necessarily going to be able to answer. Like, you've neutralized the one thing that they had going for them, and that's it. Whereas even if you were like able to put up a touchdown every time you got the ball against Cincinnati, if they're able to come close to answering, it's still a pretty dangerous, tight game and entertaining.
Yeah, it's the game that everybody loves.
Yeah.
Last thing we wanted to touch on here before the building explodes. Two things. The Rams.
It's all fun and games till we're picking bits of shrapnel out of our face.
Rams-Vikings has been moved officially to Arizona.
Yes.
And I think you wanted to maybe change your pick with the move here.
I was definitely thinking about if it's not in Los Angeles, I would go Minnesota. I am, however, going to maintain the emotional hedge of sticking with Los Angeles. I hate that matchup for Minnesota. I hate the matchup, and I feel like they took an emotional body blow against the Lions a week ago that I think is going to be quite difficult to recover from.
We will have two unique matchups in the NFC divisional, no matter what. Commanders and Lions haven't played, and Vikings, Rams, I don't believe they've played. Oh, no, Rams did play the Eagles earlier this year. But either way, the winner is going to go to Philadelphia Sunday afternoon in the divisional. So that game has officially been moved to Arizona tonight. Enjoy that. It's no longer Super Wildcard Weekend. It's Wildcard Weekend. And then we wanted to spend a few minutes on the New England Patriots hiring Mike Vrabel, officially announced yesterday after firing Gerard Mayo after 1 year. They've gone back to old friend Mike Vrabel, who is not part of the Bill Belichick coaching tree, but he just played for Bill Belichick. So it's not a coaching tree.
Who makes that call?
What?
Who makes that call?
It's not the coaching tree.
According to you?
Yeah, it's like he's part of like Urban Meyer's coaching tree.
He's part of Urban Meyer.
He never coached under Bill Belichick, therefore you're not
right,
part
but
of the
who
tree.
makes the determination that that's what makes you part of the tree?
Logic.
He's a coach that came from under Bill Belichick at some point.
No, then you would say he's from Bill Cowher's coaching tree. Well, because he played for Bill Cowher.
Okay, he could be under both. I mean, coaches have coached under two different coaches. Like there are coaches that have coached under both Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay.
Vrabel's his own coach, his own tree.
It's my tree. Planting my own damn tree.
I'm just saying the history of the Bill Belichick coaching tree has not gone well. The people that have coached under Bill Belichick and then coached elsewhere. Vrabel never coached under Bill Belichick, and I think that's a distinct difference.
Yeah.
Anyway, he takes over for New England. Your thoughts?
I think it makes a lot of sense for both sides. I don't know that means it'll be a success, but he's a more experienced version of what they were trying to get in Gerard Mayo, right? Like, he's a guy that's actually had the job and, arguably done a pretty good job the first time around in Tennessee, overachieved in a lot of instances, has the experience, and came from the system, like, the Patriot way. If there is anything to that, and it wasn't just you happen to have Bill Belichick and Tom Brady at the same time for 20 years, if there is such a thing as institutional experience in the Patriot way, Vrabel knows it. He's lived it. He's done it. So you've got that, the thing that you were trying to maintain, but you've got a guy who's actually done the job and had experience doing it and been pretty successful doing it beforehand. So I think it makes sense from both sides. However, the biggest problem in New England is still you have the worst offensive line and receiving core in football, and you need to fix that quite quickly.
Yeah, interesting 6-year run from Vrabel in Tennessee. He took over a team. Remember, Mike Mularkey was the head coach in 2016 and 17 in Tennessee. They were 9-7. So they fired Mularkey, bring in Mike Vrabel, and they go 9-7 the next 2 years. But one of those years they go to the AFC Championship, 2019.
Right.
So they go 9-7, then win the go to the AFC Championship, upset the Ravens in the playoffs on their way there
with Ryan Tannehill.
Tannehill, right? So then they go 11-5 and 12-5 in 2020 and 21. And in 21, I think they had the number 1 seed and lost in the first round to the Cincinnati Bengals. So that 3-year stretch of, if you go back, remember how many times we came in here, we're like, who just made plays for this Tennessee defense?
Yeah.
It was like no-name defense plus Jeffrey Simmons for a few years there, where they completely overachieved to the point where I thought Mike Vrabel was the next Mike Tomlin, right? Impossible for this guy to lose. Doesn't matter what you give him. He'll make do. Got the best out of Ryan Tannehill. And also they had Derrick Henry. They had A.J. Brown. They had the dudes there. But he got the best stretch of play out of Ryan Tannehill and went to the playoffs.
Yeah. It's also worth remembering that, I mean, Vrabel was effectively fired because he didn't play well with others. Let's put it that way. He was pissed off when they traded away A.J. Brown. Like, you can start looking at the personnel decisions that were made in Tennessee and say, maybe Mike was right almost all of the time here. Now you've got him, I mean, presumably he's not, like, Elliott Wolf is still there, right, in New England.
Yep.
So you've got this whole dynamic of, well, okay, how does this work? What is the structure here? Who's making the personnel decisions? How much power does Mike Vrabel have in this dynamic? So he's already demonstrated that if he doesn't have all of the power, or at the very minimum, if he's sharing power with a guy and he disagrees with that guy a lot, it's not going to go particularly well. So that's a question mark. A two-part question. Number one, how much power does Mike actually have here? Number two, if the personnel power is still staying with Elliott Wolf and Mike disagrees with personnel decisions, how does that go down? These are all things that need to play out for us to figure out how this is going to work. But based off the previous evidence, I would suggest we start to listen to Mike a lot more about personnel, because he seems to have been right most of the time when there was disagreement in Tennessee.
He didn't want to trade A.J. Brown,
right?
The whole thing. So that was the last 2 years after those good stretches. The last 2 years, they win 7 games in 2022, 6 games in 2023, and kind of a surprising firing last year at this time that they moved on. And Tennessee wanted to modernize their front office. They didn't want Mike Vrabel to just be the one voice. They wanted to they added a whole new analytics department, all these different things. Now they're picking number 1 overall, by the way, Tennessee.
Right.
And Vrabel's in New England. So yeah, that whole dynamic, and we've talked a lot about Elliott Wolf, second year really officially as GM, but he had some personnel power with Belichick, but uneven start times, always curious. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Vrabel's personnel power does look like. But again, there was a point in his career where it looked like he's going to elevate rosters no matter what's going on.
The Elliott Wolf thing is interesting because on the one hand, you got Drake May right. That's like the biggest decision you made in the draft a year ago. But then nothing else from that draft came good, with the exception of the best quarterback in the draft, Joe Milton. But like, we're like, at that time, okay, you decided not to trade down. You picked your quarterback. Now your quarterback has the worst offensive line and receiving core in the NFL on paper. How are you going to fix that? And they hit both those positions hard in that draft, right? For the next 4 picks were all wide receivers or offensive linemen. After Drake May, none of those guys have been good for them. So now they're rookies, like most rookies tend to struggle. But to get nothing out of those 4 picks is a problem. So
I could see them drafting in a similar way, where it's multiple linemen, multiple pass catchers this year.
You have to, right? Yeah. I mean, I think they should do other things as well, but this is not a good offseason for veteran offensive linemen or wide receivers. So you're going to need to draft in volume again, and like at some point you need to get some of those picks right. Otherwise, you didn't fix the issue, and that might undermine the one good thing you did, which is draft Drake May. So the jury, I think, is very much still out on Elliott Wolf as a personnel guy.
Yeah, love off-season time, and New England will be one of the stories they'll be closely watched with all the draft capital, all the money that they have, and the fact that they have Drake May on the roster. How are they going to build around them? Also, the defense hasn't been great either, right? So personnel-wise, it wasn't great coming into the year. They had overachieved. A lot to work on that roster. But Vrabel's in New England now. I think that's who they wanted. They got their guy.
Yeah.
They didn't hire him last year. They gave Gerard Mayo a shot, and I also think that they feel like they failed quickly, moved on quickly, and got to the right spot at this point.
It did seem, I mean, the 2+2 answer was when they fired Gerard Mayo 6 minutes after the game ended. It's like with a statement, with a pre-prepared statement, be like, hey, this was a hard decision for everybody. This hurts you, or hurts me more than it hurts you. It did seem very much like the reason that was so prepared and rushed was because Mike Vrabel was out there. Like, Mike Vrabel was out there and had been newly liberated to talk to people, freed from his consultancy gig by the Browns to interview. Teams were lining up to interview him. So the Patriots are like, oh, if we want Mike, we got to get it done like now.
Yeah. Still a bunch of jobs out there. Jets, Saints, Raiders. Still
you have your interview with the Jets yet?
I'd rather not say.
I only asked because they appear to have interviewed everybody else in the known world.
Mike T.
I'm not saying that's unsound
process.
process.
Mike T's not answering my text.
Why not talk to everybody? Unless you know what's out there, how can you know what you need?
I don't think Mike T's taken me as a serious candidate for some reason.
I feel like that's a failing on your half. If you haven't eloquently explained your resume yet.
I mean, 33rd team. It's just
he's not watching our show.
He always watches our show.
He's busy. He's on.
He is very busy right now.
Sounding off his own hot takes when we're on the air.
That's true. He can't listen to us and get our lukewarm takes in his head when he's got the hot takes to spew. Anyway, we got a big show on Wednesday, by the way. Wednesday, we're going to have Matt Harmon from Yahoo.
Excellent.
Wide receiver expert.
Reception, perception.
Matt does great work. We're going to talk about the rookie wide receiver class, the breakout Brian Thomas year, how great he was, Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors. So we'll break down all those guys on Wednesday and all the normal great stuff that we do on our Wednesday show. And then don't forget, you're wearing your No Shouty Shows shirt. We've got all of our Check the Mic gear, athletelogos.com/collection/check the mic. The link is in the YouTube description. Go get some merch, man.
Indeed.
All right.
Shouty shows.
That's a quick 2 hours for us today.
Breezy.
That's what happens.
Yep.
Wild card weekend. Enjoy the football tonight. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. We'll see you again on Wednesday with more Check the Mic.